Hello there, very good morning to you. My name's Debbie Shaw and you're watching Sewing Street. It's lovely to have your company this morning. Hope you had a lovely weekend, enjoying the sunshine if you can. We're going to do a spot of sewing for the next, 5 hours. 3 of those are live this morning. So at 9 o'clock we're going to be looking at some new fabrics. We've got some new canvases for you, which I know are going to be really, really busy. And then at 9 o'clock it's sewing surgery. So if you have any questions that you want to come through, it's a whole hour of Q&A. So let me solve your sewing problems. And if I can't, I will do for next time. And then at 11 o'clock, we're not live anymore. At 10 o'clock, so I'm a bit bewildered this morning. At 10 o'clock we have the air threading overlocker as well. So let's demystify that threading system and get you excited about finishing off your seams. But it's 8 o'clock in the morning, so we always bring you a very special offer, and we have fabrics that are going to brighten up your day. These are 100% cotton. We call this an early bird, and basically we take an item or items and we reduce the price as long as we have the stock or for the rest of the day. They tend to sell out rather quickly because you get some really good deals. So this is Tropical Zest, a combination of citrus, lemons and limes. £8.97 brings you 1.5 metres. That's good value for money, isn't it? You can order more than one as it comes in a bundle. They will be pre-cut, so you'll have 3 half-metre lengths. So if you order 2, you will have 6 half-metre lengths. And let me show you the size of these as well. So there we go. So the 2 plain colours are quilting weight cotton, and the spotty ones are poplin. But the 3 of them really go together very, very well anyhow. But look how bright and sunny that is. And then you've got the lime greens as well. Gorgeous colours. Don't they go so well together? So that's that one. And then again, these are 112 centimetres wide, so just over a metre wide. And then you have your poplin. They're kind of the same weight. The difference between your poplin and your quilting cotton is how tightly they're woven. So you'll find with the poplin you've got a bit of a better drape, so you can still quilt with it and you can still dressmake with your cottons, but choose a garment that's going to be nice and crisp, like a blouse or a nice full skirt. I think would look lovely. Need to join a few pieces together to do that, but really nice for summer clothes for children. So you can be making little romper suits and shorts and shirts and maybe frilly blouses out of those. Oh, spotty green romper I think would be very, very cute. Right, so let's roll those up really nicely again. So again, £8.97. Now when you order, if you're new to us this morning, hello, welcome along. You'll notice that it says on the side of your screen 3.95 P&P all day. So if you wanted to order these, you pay your £3.95, but then if you come back later on and order anything else, you don't pay any more postage. Now to order, have a look on the website for these if you want to order online, but you will need to search the item number, which I've just made it disappear. Come back. See the power I have in my finger. It's just. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's your item number. So you'll need to search for the item number. So CUXC36, that's the number that you need to write down. Then you can go to the website, put that number into the search bar at the top, and a third of the stock sold. You better be quick if you're doing that. You can order on the phone lines down here, that's still there. I don't have that much power. I've got power here, but not here. 0800 001 4433 is our telephone number, and it's a free UK helpline as well. So that would probably be the quickest way to place your order, going really, really quickly. What are you going to make? Is it going to be maybe cushions for the garden? You're going to brighten up your patio set, or the conservatory, or you just wanted to add a splash of colour, or are you quilting? Do you have something in mind? When you see those lovely fabrics, what do you think? Oh, I could make, I don't know, I could make a skirt, I could make a dress, I could make a cushion cover, I could make a table. Come and let me know. And the way to do that is, actually we've got an email now, haven't we? We have a studio email, which is studio@sewingstreet.com, I'm assuming. Oh, that was a good guess. Studio@sewingstreet.com. So send us an email this morning. let us know what you've been up to, what you've been making. If you want to send any pictures in, that would be nice to see those as well. Or you can go to our Facebook page, which is Sewing Street TV. And if you go to visitor posts, that's where I am at the moment. So if you put a post on there, I can read it straight away. I'm not on the fans page. I'm on the other one. We tend to get a lot of messages on the Sewing Street fans page during the live shows, and I can't see those live, but of course they are read through afterwards. Okay, so that is your early bird. Now, are you ready? You're gonna love this. This is cotton canvas. And it is the most beautiful fabric. It's quite a heavy weight, so if you're dressmaking, it's going to be maybe an unlined jacket, a summer jacket, that kind of weight. Or make a pretty dress, but it would be more like pinafore type of dress. But with this fabric, I'd be looking at homewares. I'd be making cushion covers with it. I'd be mixing and matching and pulling out the different colours. I'd be making bags with it. I'd be making any kind of craft items, storage items. It is beautiful and detailed. I love the way it looks as though it's been printed onto old wood. Like, you know, when you see planks that have been peeling, it's that kind of look. It's so pretty. I know this is going to be really popular. Oh gosh, it is really, really busy for this one. This is by the 1/2 metre, so if you need more, if you do want to, I've made a skirt out of the grey. I should have worn it, shouldn't I, before now. But if you wanted to go for more than 1/2 metre, they do come all joined up. So if you wanted 1 metre, then order 2, and it'll come to you in 1 piece. But I'd get as much as that as I can. It is lovely. And homewares I think would be perfect, even if you're covering seats and stools and things like that, because it's a canvas. It's a really tough fabric, so window cushions would look amazing. You could make curtains out of this. It's a lovely curtain weight. Roman blinds, imagine a Roman blind against your bathroom window made out of this. That's the type of fabric you have. You would need to line it, you wouldn't need to interface it, I don't think. Unless you wanted to put a black outlining on it or something like that. But it's lovely fabric. I knew you were going to love this. And you can mix with different weights of fabric as well. It's the same weight as the canvases that we have on the website, but you can mix different with it. So if you've got a mint coloured fabric at home, just put a little bit of stabiliser on the back of it, just to give it a little bit more oomph and bring it up to the thickness of the, you'll love the grey one, of the canvas. Look at that. How elegant. How upside down. It's really, really busy for these. Please check out on the website if you're ordering on sewingstreet.com. Go through to checkout and pay, because otherwise it's not actually yours. Things can't sit in baskets for hours. Or you can order on the phone lines 0800 001 4433. You can order as much as you like. So I would do while we've got it. It's just lovely. I love the colours. There's, you know, just salmon pinks and corals. There's mint greens, but it's all very, oh gosh, less than 20 metres of the grey remaining now. They're all very kind of sophisticated colours, aren't they? It's really, really pretty. I'm going to do a bit of fussy cutting later on and use some of this for applique. So, and actually I do have a bag made out of the butterfly fabric as well. Less than 15 now of the pink and the grey. That's how quickly we're going. But it's perfect for bag making. I have used some foam. And I did use the lilac canvas for lining on that one, which I don't think we've got in stock, but if you wanted to go for a plain, we do have a grey. It's a very dark grey, but it does really go very, very well. But again, if you've got colours at home with the pinks, with the mints, if you've got some of the PU, no, you don't do a mint one, do you? A grey one would look really nice in that as well. They just mix together really, really well. So it's lovely fabric to work with, that one. It's one of my favourites, the canvases and the PUs. My very favourite fabrics. That's why I try and bring them to you every single week. My Sunday morning fabrics. Look at the blue. This is like a denim colour in the ground. There we go. So, and again, you can really see texture. It's quite vintage, isn't it? Even, you know, considering it's a very modern kind of print. And I like the fact that they are actual proper butterflies, aren't they? Maybe not the colours, but I recognise a cabbage white when I know one of those when I see one. Not any of the others, but that's about as far as it goes. Is the one with the legs, the bits here? Is that a red admiral? And that one's a tortoiseshell. That's it. That's the extent. The rest they're just moths, really, aren't they? Moths with pretty wings. But that with the denim, in fact, with the lightweight denim. The denim in the lighter colour that we have on the Sunday morning shows, I think would go really well with that one. Or you can go for a navy, which we do have, navy and the blue. Those go well together. Or if you wanted to go for something more neutral, we do have a bundle, but they are available individually as well. So I would go grey, the light grey for that one. And in fact, that's in the bundle. You have to go for the whole bundle for that one. But you could, I tell you what you could do. That goes really well, doesn't it? So if you're making a bag, because it's kind of picking out the colours here, then use your Osnaburg for lining. I'll show you that in just a second. So again, £5.99 is your price, and that is 140 wide. So it's wider than your quilting cotton. It's fabulous. It's lovely. It's a really, you're not going to be disappointed when you get it home. It is a really lovely quality. I've got loads of it at home. Okay. File that back up. I think these are going to sell out. So please order now before you have a look at everything else that we've got for you on the show. Because if you want something else later on, remember you don't pay any extra postage. Now that bundle that I mentioned is 1/2 metre of each one of these. So there's the black, the dark grey, the light grey, and then you have the natural, and that's a seeded canvas. It is a canvas, but it's one of those unbleached, and you can see the seed pods in it. And then you've got the off-white there as well. I think that's a really classy combination. And use them all together. You know, you can do a bit of patchwork with these. I wouldn't make a bed quilt, but you could certainly do patchwork cushion covers and table runners and things like that. Or garden quilts, why not? So tables in the garden, your garden seats, and but you can make clothing out of it. So if you wanted to make a linen look type of trousers, then this would be perfect for that. Lightweight jackets, or if you have a look on the website in one of the shows later on, we've got the So Different block dress, which would look lovely in 3 different colours of these as well. So it's £19.49, 2.5 metres there in total. And again, actually, if you wanted to order any of those on their own, we do have them. We don't have the light grey on its own, but we certainly have the black. And that's AGL08, apparently. Is your item number. It'll come up here in a minute, like a magic finger. Boom! Go on, go, go. Change, change, change. £3.99 for 1/2 metre. That is such good value. And again, it's a nice weight. It's a good, strong, heavier than ordinary cotton weight of fabric. Then we've got the dark grey. Calling this one charcoal. And again, £3.99 for 1/2 metre. And the ones by the 1/2 metre, you can order more than that. So if you did want to make a pair of trousers or a dress or a tablecloth or something, it will come all in one big piece. So £3.99 for 1/2 metre, and there's your item number there. So we don't have the grey, the pale grey, available by the 1/2 metre. Do we have the natural one? Is that cream? Okay. And again, it's a heavy weight of fabric, but it's still soft. And if you're looking at that and you're thinking, what is the difference between this and this? Well, you can see immediately it's the weave. So they're both kind of unbleached with seed pods, but the Osnaburg has a looser weave, which means, I know this is only £3.99, but this one is even more affordable. And it's floppier because it's got the looser weave. So this one, if you wanted to use it stretched over a stool or a dining room chair, absolutely perfect. This one I wouldn't, because it's going to give a little bit. So a sturdier fabric if you wanted to go for this one. So it depends what you're making with it. If it's a bag lining, go for that one. If you're making a toile, go for that one. And if you want something that's a little bit more sturdy, long lasting, and it feels smoother as well, this can be, it's not rough, but it feels rough compared to this one. It's not like calico, but it is rougher than this one. So that's your difference. So that's, again, £3.99. And then we have the ecru, which is like an ivory off-white kind of colour. And again, that's £3.99. Right, let's have a look at Osnaburg. And then we'll make a bag. So that's how wide it is. You may have seen this before. We've offered it in bundles before now, but the first time you've ever seen this by the ½ metre. So if you did want to make a toile, then you can order metres and metres of it. Look at the price, at £2.50. To be honest, I think you'd be hard pushed to buy calico for that kind of price, and that's normally the cheap option of fabric that you go to when you're making something like a toile. But I like that natural look. If you're working with hessians or those natural fibres, it gives a very kind of organic, rustic feel. So it is sturdy. It's heavier than your cottons, than your quilting cottons and your poplins, obviously, but it has got a looser weave, but it's unbleached and it's got the flex in there as well. But £2.50, honestly, even if you are doing upholstery and you're putting covers over dining room chairs and stools and things like that, you would normally put your padding on there, your horsehair kind of equivalent, and then you will stretch over some kind of calico fabric, or some kind of really cheap fabric, before you then put your more expensive finishing fabric on the top. And this kind of thing is perfect for that. So it's a shame, really, because it's. I'm saying it's a fabric that isn't really going to be seen, and it is a really lovely fabric to be seen. But I think just because of the price, and again, bag lining's absolutely perfect for that one. That's fantastic value. Would be nice as well to actually use this for hand embroidery. It's going to be really easy to hand embroider because it's got the looser weave, or if you're if you're embroidering, if you're doing patchwork, if you just wanted to break up a heavier weight of fabric, I think this would be really nice. And it's easy to iron as well. Calico, which this one's made out of, is a nightmare. I mean, it's fine for something like that, but it's so creased up. But calico is more expensive than this. But I do like that natural, that organic kind of look. So you can see the weave there. All these flecks are meant to be there. They're actually parts of the seed pod, the cotton seed pod. And there you can actually see the weave as well. It does look like vanilla, doesn't it? But I'd get as much as that. Oh, that was a big hand. Get as much as that as you think you can use. That's the kind of price where, even if you don't have a project in mind at the moment, you just, I'm just gonna get some of that because it's so affordable. Right, so that's that. I've got it back in stock on my quilting book. So we sold out, look at my quilting bits. We sold out last week completely. I spent days signing books, literally. And now there's another big pile of boxes outside. And actually the reason being, Sewing Street have got an exclusive on the book until next Monday. So we've got to have the stock so that you can still buy it, because you can't get it anywhere else at the moment. So there are sites that you can pre-order. If you order today, you'll probably get this before the pre-orders start going out, because they won't be going out until next Monday. So on general release on the 8th of June, but you get yours beforehand and you get yours signed as well. So every one of the books is signed. If you haven't seen it before, you're obviously new to Sewing Street, because I think it's on every day. I'm sorry about that. It's a book for beginners, who want to learn quilting, basically. So this isn't lots of patchwork. There is some patchwork in there. It's about quilting techniques. So I think there's a big difference. Well, there is a big difference between quilting and patchwork. They don't necessarily go hand in hand. A lot of the time they do. But you can quilt plain fabric, and it doesn't have to be a quilt that you make. So I'm trying to encourage people to start quilting. So I'll give you the information about machines, the feet, the tools and equipment that you need, and then maybe the tools and equipment that you want. There's a difference there as well. And then using templates, using rulers, different kind of marking tools, and just different ways of quilting things. So whether that's hand sewing, English paper piecing, that little quilt there is tied. It could be just straight line quilting. It could be free motion. There's a couple of Quilt As You Go projects in there as well. But then if you are making a quilt, you'll need to bind it. So self-bind, all these different bindings. Those four all look the same. They're all different types of binding. So there's all the techniques to do them. So after you've learned all of the techniques and we've whetted your appetite, then we move on to 10 projects, including quilts, but they're very simple because remember this is beginners. Bargello pillowcase. There's some smaller items in here as well, like the bag, for instance. That's big stitch quilting. And finally is the English paper piece hexi quilt. So that's £9.99. Again, not available anywhere else at the moment. I haven't even got any. I've got my you get 5 free books when you write a book. Then you have to buy them just like everybody else does. I know. Authors are never rich. But I've got my 5 free books, even I can't get hold of any more at the moment. If you'd ordered from Search Press, my publishers, they can't release this until the 8th either. So the only place you can get it at the moment is here on Sewing Street. We've also got my Brilliant Bags book. And I'm going to make a bag in a minute. This one, it's about... Yes, it's about making bags, but it's about how you can create your own bag. So there's 12 projects in here, but there's an awful lot about how I design a bag. So I'll pass on some hints and tips for you and put myself out of work. And, you know, how you create your handles, how you can customise projects, where do you start, how do you make a pattern for it. And then, of course, you've got your full projects in there as well. So lots of different styles of bags. Some of them are very small and some of them are very big that you can use as baby bags. So you've got everything from a little cosmetic bag all the way through to some big bags. And lots of different techniques that you can use with different bags as well. So, again, that's £9.99. Should do a bit of sewing. Anybody saying hello yet? Oh, hi, Lynn. It's lovely to see you again, Debbie. Just ordered my sew tiles. Oh, you're ahead of the game. That's a little something new coming up in the next hour. For my first English paper piecing project, I watched Tula Pink use these on one of her EPP demos and she loved them. Oh, you name dropper. That's on Facebook on the visitor post, or of course you can drop us an email as well if you like. I'm not using those, am I? To studio@sewingstreet.com. Using these. That's not mine. That goes there. So these are the canvases, and I'm going to make a similar drawstring bag to this one, but I'm not going to do exactly the same technique. But this one, well, it'll look the same as that, but slightly different. So, but again, the book's all about learning different techniques. So let's go for these two because I like those best. So I always like to have a think about the size of the bag that I'm making, how long I want the straps to be, how many pockets I need on it, what I can do to make it look a little bit different. But I think with bags that you make yourself, it's all about making it work for you. So I like, if I'm making a handbag for myself, I do make lots of pockets because I don't like rummaging around in the bottom of the bag trying to find my keys. And it just seems the bigger the bag, the more things you lose in there as well. So I like to put dividers in there and I like to put lots of pockets in there. But this is just going to be a plain one because I haven't got time to do all of that within the hour. Always like to iron my fabric first. Particularly if you are using a pattern, that's really important. Iron your pattern and iron your fabric, because if you If you've got a really bad crease in your fabric and you cut over it, the chances are when you open it up, you've got a bit missing. I don't pre-wash with bags because they're never going to be washed. So if I'm dressmaking, I would do. There'd be nothing worse than spending all of that time and money making a dress, and only to find the first time you wash it, it shrinks or the colours run. So that would be the one occasion normally when I pre-wash. So don't normally have to worry about shrinking. And most fabrics these days are colour fast actually. But particularly if you're working with reds and whites or the two together, then definitely pre-wash then. So I will need a front and a back and a drawstring bit. So, ruler, rotary cutter, all of these are on the website as well if you need anything like that. And we cut through all 4 pieces. Oh, I've picked up a left-handed rotary cutter, that's not going to work. That's better. Well, it will work if you're left-handed. It's not going to work for me being right-handed. Oh, that was a big ask. Going through 4 layers of canvas in one go. Come on. That will do there. And then we'll have it, I'm just making sure everything's nice and square. We'll go 14 inches because that looks like a good size bag to me. And so 14 inches across, and we are, where's my measurements gone? I'm upside down, aren't I? We're 13.5 inches down. So nice rectangle shape. Oh, almost in one go. Right. Just snip the corner with my scissors. And then I'll need the bit to go around the top to do the drawstring. So when you think about it, if I've got a bag that is, it's going to be 14 inches that way, and I'm going to make a base out of it, which is going to measure 4 inches across. So I'm going to cut 2-inch squares out of the bottom here. But if that's 14 inches across, that's going to make, I need the, so I'm doing my maths in my head now. I need the bit that goes around the top for the drawstring to be 14 inches, and I reckon about 6 inches deep. And then we'll see if it works, you never know. So let's cut those bits out first of all. So I will need a marking implement. And we'll just cut a 2-inch square from each corner. That's 2.5. There we go. Oh, the butterfly converse. I told you I'm a bit wobbly today. The butterfly canvas in the blue and the grey are about to sell out. So need to be quick for those, just really quickly. It's, whoa, that one and that one are just about to go. So if you've got the mini baskets, go through and check out pronto, please, if you don't mind. And then it's going to be the pink to be the next one to go when those do go. Right. So, in fact, the pink, we've only got 7 metres of that left as well. So if you're making curtains, I'd snatch it up. All right, let's cut this out. And we can cut those corners out there. And that's through all 4 pieces. So I've got 2 for the lining and 2 for the outside of the bag. And then for the top section, I'm going to have the outside of the bag. Oh, I could have appliqued, couldn't I? But we shan't. So for the outside of the bag, we may do a little bit of applique in the next hour. We may have the applique scissors back in stock. So we'll cut that the same width. Oh, we need 2 of that, yeah. We'll cut that the same width. So again, this is going to make the drawstring bit around the top. and what did I say, about 6 inches. Sometimes it's trial and error. If you have your Osnaburg fabric, then it might be an idea to just make up a bag toile. And if it turns out nice, you can still use it as a bag because it's nice fabric. So that's that. Okay, now I'm going to put some fusible fleece on the wrong side of the outside of my bag. I don't know how we'll use them. With your canvas, there isn't really a wrong side and a right side. It is very, very similar, but it's always good practice, no matter what the fabric is, to use the same side. So you wouldn't know, if you look at the two of those together, you can't really tell the difference between the right and the wrong. This may be a little bit more textural somehow. I think that's the wrong side, but as long as you use both of the same sides, then it really doesn't matter. If you're not sure which is the right and the wrong side of your fabric, have a look at the selvage, which is the solid piece that goes down the edge. That's as it comes off the roll. When it comes off the roll, it'll be on hooks. Then the hooks make little holes all along the selvage. The hooks go from the back to the front and they poke the selvage up. So if you feel the selvage and you feel it a little bit rough on one side where the holes are, that's going to be your right side. Right, so stretch fabric, however, surgery's in the next hour, isn't it? Right. So this is the Liesling H640 fusible fleece, and I would always use some kind of fleece, wadding, foam, something on a bag, just to give it a bit of stability, make it stand up a little bit more, and it gives it a more professional finish as well. And I like this one because you can use a really hot iron on it, as long as your fabric will stand for a really hot iron. And you can use steam, and it really does stick, but without wrinkling the fabric up, because some of them do. All right, so that's that. Oh, that Osnaburg, by the way, sold out. There we go. Now the difference is going to be, obviously it's not going to stand up on its own, it's two-dimensional, but you can see it does have some kind of stability there, whereas without, even though it's a nice thick fabric, it's just going to flop. So your bag will be like that basically, whereas this one's going to stand up. I'll just sign up to the edges. And again with this one, we'll do the same. Morning, oh hi Sarah, great show, loving the look of the butterfly canvases. They're lovely, aren't they? I know. Not going to be lasting very long. We had quite a few hundred of those as well. Right. I'll do the same on this side. I'm going to leave the handles quite soft, and I'm going to leave the drawstring bit around the top quite soft as well. Otherwise it won't pull up. So this wouldn't be the one to use for the drawstring. Right, let's chop that there. Snip this out, and that's that. There, right, so that's that. Then we're going to need some handles as well. Can't carry a bag without handles, so let's do the handles in the ochre. And they're quite short ones, I think. That works. Throw a tape measure over your shoulder and see how long you want your strap to be. So if you're just making a short strap, that's a short strap, then I'm making mine. Got my ruler upside down again, and the wrong way around. 15 inches long. I like to cut them 4 inches wide, and then when I fold them in half and half again to make the straps up, it'll make a finished 1 inch strap, which is a nice width for a strap. It's nice and sturdy and not too thick. And if you do have any metal hardware at home that you're using, they tend to be an inch big. So D-rings tend to be an inch, rectangle rings tend to be an inch, so it fits really neatly through there as well. So let's fold these up and then we can start constructing. We'll have a chat about constructing fabric in the next hour, because one of my questions that came through was about different weights and different types of fabric. So I thought we'd have a chat about it, because not everybody knows. If you wanted this to be a little bit firmer, you could use a bit of spray starch. So I've folded the edge, folded in half to mark the centre point, and then fold in half and in half again, and press, and then let's do this. Oh, this cut and press, by the way, this is really handy. As you've seen, I use this one a lot in the studio. We've got another one that's just an ironing board down there, and then we do have a huge cutting mat somewhere as well. But I like this because of its size, because you can still cut, you know, it's like A3, I think. You can still cut a decent size of fabric with it. But the ironing board on the back is really handy. And you've still got the measurements on here as well. So if I'm wanting to be really accurate as I'm ironing, maybe I'm turning up a hem and it needs to be, I don't know, exactly an inch. Okay. And you can use steam. It's a proper little ironing board. All of the cotton used on here has been pre-shrunk, so you don't have to worry about using hot steam or anything with it. And your markings aren't going to disappear. Right, that's it for you at the moment. I'm talking to the iron like it's a person. And we'll do a bit of sewing on the 720. So I'm going to change my thread to grey. I didn't quite have time before we came in. And I did have some grey thread. Oh, it's on the floor. Right, so just pop that out and take it off. We will be looking more at the 720 in the next hour. So again, next hour is going to be sewing surgery. So if you do have any questions and if you've got anything to say about the 720, it'd be lovely to hear from you too. Right, you go in there and pull across there and go up into the side, and we are threaded. You know, we were going to do, I've had questions about applique and why we need applique scissors, and I did mention that they may be back in stock, and I'm just hoping we have some left for the next hour because they're going really quickly. I'm making the stitch a little bit longer on this. I wish I could make the foot pedal lead a little bit longer. It's handy to be able to do yoga, or the splits would be handy. Because sometimes this foot pedal ends up in Coventry somewhere. So, longer stitch, where are you? That's the one. So I'll go up to 3.5. I wouldn't go faster than that. And I'm just going to sew down each side of the bag, of the strap. It only needs to be sewn on the one side to hold it together, but I think it just looks nicer to have a second row of stitches on the opposite side. I do like it to look professional. So don't need anything special for this. If you're sewing very thick fabrics, or if you've got lots of layers or thick seams to sew over with your canvas, then a denim needle would be good. They're just stronger needles, but I think this is a universal one. It seems to be doing fine. Okay, so we'll make the drawstring bit to go around the top. So those are those 2 6-inch pieces that I cut, and I'm going to sew and reverse. I'm just using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or thereabouts. It doesn't have to be the same as long as it's consistent. And this one, where's this? We'll go have a ribbon on one side. Okay, so I'm going to start sewing the seam here about 2 inches down. And then let's open out that seam. It's nice having all these tools around, isn't it? Things that make your life a little bit easier. I'm just going to use the roll and press to just do that. Oh, we've had an email on our new email address. So excited to have a new email address. Oh, but you haven't put your name. We don't know who you are. But they say, hello, good morning, Debbie from sunny Staffordshire. Hello, sunny Staffordshire. Oh, was that it? Just good morning? All right, oh, and Jill's emailed in as well. And she says, morning, Debbie. Morning, Jill. Oh, she's made a bag from the So Brilliant Bags book. Oh, I'd love to see what you've been making. Oh. She says she's used twice as much cord as I suggested and can't use it without strangling herself. What I've done here, oh, she hasn't finished yet. Sorry, Jill. The backpack behind me. She wants to know how much cord is in there. Can't remember offhand. Let me give it a measure. So that will be right way around again. So that is 18, and that goes around the top as well. So that would be 18, 25, about 50 inches. Obviously cut into 2. And that cord was just piping cord that I dyed. So, yeah, so that was that. Anyway, round where I left the, I started sewing 2 inches. I just tend to carry on and not tell you what I'm doing, aren't I? It's like being at home. So I've folded the seam back, opened out the seam there, and just sewn around the edge to make it neat. And then this part is where the channel's going to go to put a ribbon in. So I'm going to fold that over and fold it over again. So I'm just having one piece of ribbon coming through this one. So you can pin that, you can press it, you could, or if you didn't want to pin and you didn't want to press, you could use a sew tile. But that's coming up in the next hour. It's nice to have new stuff, isn't it? Right, so there we go. And again, I'm folding over by about 1/4 of an inch and then about 1/2 an inch. Be aware of the thickness of your ribbon. So if you're using 1/2 inch wide ribbon, maybe the channel would need to be a little bit wider than that. Over we go. And again, you can pin that if you find it easier, or you could just press it. I'm not too fussed normally with a bag about whether I'm pressing seams open or not. It depends how much I'm enjoying it, to be honest. If I'm really enjoying making something and I've got lots and lots of time, then I'll do everything by the book. Seeing as I write them, you know. But if I'm in a rush, it doesn't really make any difference. No one's going to see. Right, oh, remember that pink butterflies that we showed you earlier on? 4 meters of that one left. Knew you'd like that. All right, almost there. And then we'll start to put the whole thing together. So I just want that to be the same length. Right, so let's sew the outside pieces together. So we're just going to go down each side and across the bottom, but not around the cutout corners, because that's going to make the base square. And here you go. I'm going to lengthen the stitch a little bit on this now, because the H640 is dragging, and I should really have had the walking foot on, but we'll do that in the next hour as well. And I've got the satin stitch foot on here as well, which I didn't really need, but you know, the project doesn't mind. The machine's not saying, not sewing that with that foot, you silly thing. And you go. Oh, and if you do want to get really, really close to your stitching, like I was then, use the right tool so you can feed that in. Or you've got your little hoof on the end as well, so you can hold things flat and get it right in there. But that's coming up in the next sound. Oh, did you want to see the detail? Sorry, I'm just not with it today. Squish out the base seams. I know you've seen this before, but it's kind of fundamental to a lot of bags. If you squish the side seam so it sits over the base seam, then I am going to squish those in opposite directions. Sort of squishing going on. Come on, over you go. A little bit of help over thicker areas there. And then let's do this. Oh, there you go. If you do have thick fabrics, you may have a seam lifter on your sewing machine. So you could use this. Sorry if that's noisy. That. So as you're coming up to a thick seam, let's just go over that again. So you'll stop when you get to your thick bit, leave the needle down, lift your foot up, and this one will go extra high, and put your seam lifter underneath, and then your foot's at the right height to sew over the seam without bumping into it. You tend to find, particularly when you're doing seams on jeans and things like that, the very thick seams, if you don't lift up the back of your foot, when the needle comes to the thick bit, it'll kind of jump over and you get a long stitch as it comes over the other side. So it's worth just stopping, particularly if you're making clothes, just worth stopping and lifting the foot. If you don't have a seam lifter, then you can use a folded up piece of fabric and just lift it up with that. So let's do the lining. Are we all right for time with this? I seem to be doing an awful lot of chat, not a lot of work. But let's do this. I'm going to leave a gap in the base so I can turn it the right side out. I'm getting all ahead of the snipping tool on there. That's what all the beeping was. That again, if the machine could talk, it'd be going, hang on a minute. It'd be refusing to sew with that foot and telling me to slow down a bit. So we need to squish out the corners on this one as well. So, and another one. We've been inundated with another email. Oh, hi Sandra. Sandra's loving the show. Thank you very much. Ooh. Right, now we're going to put this thing together. So we'll need the bag the right side out. We'll need the handle. Oh, I should have put the handles on a bit earlier actually. Let's put the handles on now. So I'll use this. Just to make sure that they're evenly placed, and they need to be facing downwards like so. And we'll have a couple of pins. I'd normally clip that, but I can't find my clips. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 3 inches from each side they can go. And I'll sew those on first before we start putting all the rest of it together. That. And then in the same position on this side goes the other handle. Oh, that's a diddy pin. And if you need pins or anything, by the way, have a look on the website. We've got all of that kind of stuff. Sewingstreet.com. And then we'll sew those just at the top within the seam allowance, so that's just to tack those in place. Move that up to the top. Whoops. And this one. Pins out as you go. Don't ever sew over pins. And here. And then the final strap. And then we'll put it together. Now, if you've not made anything like this before, it's worth kind of taking a step back and working out how the bag's going to look, because we've got quite a few layers going together now. So that's obviously the outside of the bag. This is going to be the drawstring bit, so I'll need that sewing around there next. And make sure that it's the right way around, because there's no lining or anything on this. So if you sew it the wrong side out, then it'll be inside out. So the easiest way to do that, I think, is to just layer it all together. So I wanted the straps attached to the bag, and then I want that bit for the drawstring attached to the top of the bag, and then the lining on the inside. So this needs to be right sides together with that. So let's turn it inside out and feed it over the top. And you can do this all in one go, it's quite easy now. So line up the side seams, because you'll see those. And then I want the lining to be right sides together with that. So I'm leaving the lining inside out. And let's drop all of this inside the lining. Oh, it's just got a bit rumpled up. So let's have a few pins in there. So I'm going to pin right into the seam at the side through all 3 layers. The bulkier ones, I'd have all of the bulk of the bag going in one direction, and then the lining and the bit around the top going in the opposite direction. And let's pin this here. And you could make these any size you like. It's a nice style of bag as a a handbag, as a day bag, but it's a nice storage size of bag as well. So you could actually make it huge and make it into a laundry bag. Same technique. Hi Dawn. She's posted on Sewing Street. Oh, is she here? Oh, got you. Morning Debbie, fabulous demo and loving the fabric. Thank you very much. You're with us every day, aren't you, Dawn? Recognise your name. Oh, Dawn always emails in. So that's nice. Okay, so I'm now going to go all the way around the top. I don't have a free arm on this machine, but it's not a problem. And my seam allowance is going to be a little bit wider just to make sure that I catch all of those layers. I pinned it from the wrong side, didn't I? Again, taking the pins out as I go. So, just making sure. Yes, I did spike myself. Put the pins in the wrong way. Normally I pin from the right-hand side going in that way, so I don't spike myself, but so because I'm right-handed I can take the pins out quite easily. Is what I normally do. But today I didn't. Right, so over there. Again, taking these out as we go. Now the straps. This is such a nice sewing machine to be sewing thick layers like this with as well. It's one of the reasons I bought mine, was so that it would cope with heavy fabrics. And again, we'll have a little bit more of a talk around this one in the next hour, but if you are in the market for a sewing machine, this is practically the same as the one that I use at home. Right, let's see how we're doing. So I'm not going to sew the opening closed or put my ribbon through the drawstring at the moment, but you'll have an idea of how we're looking. And it needs a jolly good press. So opening in the bottom of the lining needs to be sewn up, and then let's push that lining inside, and then you've got a little hole at the side in the seam, remember, that we left where your drawstring is going to go. So just a piece of ribbon or a cord on on a safety pin, and pull that through so it gathers up like so. And then you've got the handles there as well. So you've got a little bag that looks like that, which you can make from scratch within 40 minutes. And there is the similar one in Brilliant Bag Book, is this one. So same kind of idea, just a different way of constructing. On this one, I've actually put some bias binding around the top. So all of those layers, the lining, the outer, and the bit around the top, are all sewn together with a raw edge around the top here, and then bias binding to finish it off. And that's particularly nice if you've got two different prints of fabric, to put a plain bias binding, because it just breaks it up a little bit. So you don't get one pattern kind of blending into another. Rather like that, I'm quite pleased with that. I didn't know I was doing that when I got here this morning. Now you know, so I have to do that. Okay, so if you do, my Brilliant Bag Book is all about ideas. So there are 12 projects in there from start to finish, but there's also techniques and ways for you to design your own bag. So that's the idea with the book. I'm giving away lots of tips and hints and secrets so that you can go away and do something like I did today. Well, I like that idea, but I'm not going to do that base. That one's quilted. I don't want to quilt this one. And you can create something that's perfect for you. So that's the whole idea. That's the biggest bag in the book, and the smallest one is the little smocked drawstring bag. So there's a lot of variation in styles of bag as well, and things like adding zip pockets, different types of zip pockets, adding a zip to the top of the bag, and making old handles, making your own handles, and hardware. And a lot of the time with hardware, they don't come with instructions. You're supposed to just know how to fit a kiss clasp lock switch, whatever they're called. So I explain how to do those in there as well. They're all called different names, aren't they? I'm pleased with that. Now the H640, I do use this a lot. The two things that I use most of the time are this and the Bosal foams. We tend to sell out of H640 a lot. So this is the fusible fleece. It's about 1/4 of an inch in thickness, but it's really easy to sew through. But as you saw, it gave my bag enough stability to stand up, but you don't have to trim it back into the seams or anything like that. So £9.99 for a whole metre of that. That's plenty enough to make 2 or 3 bags. You will get a complete piece, of course. Okay, where are we? 9 o'clock. It's almost time for surgery. So again, if you just joined us, oh gosh, what kind of sewing are you doing? I'm very good with a lattice stitch. Sewing surgery coming up in the next hour is an hour of questions and answers. So lots of you have been sending me and Sewing Street questions over the last month. But if you have any questions, if I didn't email in, then you can email into the show in the next hour, and I shall do my best to answer any questions that you have. So yeah, we're going to go and put the kettle on for a couple of minutes, and we'll see you back here in about 3 minutes' time.
Hello and welcome. We love hearing from you, and we really hope that you can follow us on our social media platforms. We've got Instagram, which is @Sewing Street. We have Facebook. We've got 2 Facebook pages. One is the Sewing Street TV page, and the other one is Sewing Street Fans. All 3 of these are monitored all the time by our wonderful team, and if you want to message us on air, drop us a line on either of those 3 and we'll definitely be able to answer your questions that you may have. If you post on the actual wall, we can perhaps answer there. Otherwise, message us as well. That works really, really well. Thank you so much for being involved, and it's only because of this community that we're able to bring you all these different diverse products and to be able to answer your questions that you may have. Another way you can stay in touch with us is by signing up to our newsletter. These newsletters are sent out to you very regularly, and they include not only our guest profiles of upcoming guests, but also amazing shows that we've got coming up for you. And if you want to look at the amazing products before everybody else, that's the best way to do it. If you'd like to sign up and you haven't already, the link to follow is www.sewingstreet.com/sign up. You won't regret it. Thank you.
Shopping with us couldn't be easier. If you want to shop online, then you can head to our website, www.sewingstreet.com. It will redirect you to our sister channel Jewellery Makers landing page. Don't worry, you haven't gone to the wrong place. We're simply using their website temporarily while we're building our own web shop. Scroll down past the Watch Live part and you'll see all of the products that you will have seen on air on today's live show. You can also shop our catalogue by clicking a category, clicking a product to view closer and adding it to your basket. Once you're ready to check out, you will need to create an account, which is absolutely free to do so, but it will mean that you can check out on as many orders as you want throughout the day with still only paying one postage and packaging. If you'd prefer to speak to somebody in our UK-based customer service team, then you can do so via the free telephone line number 0800 001 4433. They will not only help you create an account, but will also help you with any of your online shopping.
Hello, I'm Catherine and I'm from Leicestershire Craft Centre in Market Harborough, and I'm delighted to be joining the Sewing Street family.
If you love sewing, then you need the UK's favourite sewing magazine. Every month you'll receive exclusive patterns. Follow simple step-by-step guides suitable for all skill levels to make your own stunning clothes, accessories and more, together with inspiring tips and tricks from industry experts. Join in and discover your love for sewing. Try Love Sewing today and get your first 3 issues for just £6.
Hi, I'm Debbie Shaw from Sewing Street, and these are my 5 top tips for successful sewing. So, number 1, always use a good quality thread. A good quality thread will keep your seams stronger and also help to prevent lint building up inside your sewing machine. Tip number 2, if your project isn't going quite according to plan, put it down, walk away from it, come back again the next day and you'll probably find that things don't seem half as bad as they did. My tip number 3, never throw away your sewing machine manual, always keep it to hand because you're going to find hints and tips, techniques and troubleshooting in that manual. You'll miss it if you lose it. My tip number 4 is to read your pattern instructions before you even cut out your fabric. Different manufacturers of patterns will give you different instructions, different ways of constructing your garments and different seam allowances. So to have a successful garment, you need to follow the instructions precisely. And then tip number 5 is don't give up. Every professional sewer sewed their first seam. Every professional quilter quilted their first quilt. Every professional quilter sewed their first line of wonky stitches and had to get out the quick and pick. That's no different to you. So I hope you find these useful. If you want more hints and tips, then why not go to Sewing Street on channel 74 on Freeview, on Sky 670, and of course we have a YouTube channel where you can catch up on previous demonstrations. We'll see you soon. Welcome back again. Surgery is now officially open. We've had a question from Sandra already. I shall be answering that later on in the show, Sandra, so do stay with us. We've got something new for you as well. Oh yeah, and you've been onto these already. What do you like? We have sew tiles. They're such a good idea. We've got a pack of 10, we've got different offers for you, but basically what you're going to do, these are the little, let me open that one and show you. These are like magnetic pins, to be honest. So that's the little pack of 10. So I've got 2 different sizes, and they're magnets. So you squish them apart, slide off the plate off the bottom, and you've got a couple of magnets on that one. There's 3 on the bigger ones, and then you can use these to kind of pin, through lots of layers of fabric. So in areas that you can't pin very easily, like for instance if you were quilting, you can use quilting pins, of course. You can use your little hand stitchers, but such an easy way. Oh, that's still on there, isn't it? they come off really easily as well, would be to hold them together with the magnets. So again, really strong. That's clicked in place now, and they're not so, they're very difficult to peel apart. You slide them, so they will hold your fabrics together very, very well. So in the areas where maybe you can't pin, maybe using a very fine fabric, if you're doing any kind of work with satins and silks and things like that, where pins are going to leave holes, or if you're using corks and faux leathers and things like that, or laminated fabrics where you can't pin, in areas that you can't clip. We all have wonder clover clips, and we'll use those to clip our bindings and hold the edges together, but you can't clip in the middle of a quilt. So that's where these little things come into effect. So there's a pack of 10 of those. Those are the minis. They're just over an inch long for £23.99. So again, squish them from side to side to open them, but they do have a strong magnet. I can't actually do that when you try and peel it open, but easy to do with one hand when you do it that way. But that's just to show how strong they actually are, which is important, because if you're quilting, then you're going to have a few layers of fabric that you want to hold together. The suggestion, if you have a look on the packaging, and there are videos on YouTube as well, is for English paper piecing. So particularly with the smaller ones there, when you're holding the pieces together, if your hands don't work that well, then use your magnets to hold those pieces together, and then you can do your hand sewing without worrying about really gripping on to stop your fabric from slipping if it's going to do that. And again, you found the scissors stuck to them. You found these in the previous hour, and well done. I think they're a great little idea. So you've got a pack of 10 minis. Or a pack of 5 minis, so that's actually the 5 one, but in the 10 one you get 10. So it's the way it works. That's how we roll. Is that what you say? That's how we roll. Or is that the 10 one? Oh, there you go. That's the 10 one. Different colour, that's all. Oh, and it's got 5 extra in it. If you just want to go for 5, that's £12.99. That's the 5-pack one. So those are those. Those are the minis. Or you could go for the original ones, which are bigger, and these have got 3 magnets, so they're even stronger. So I think if you're quilting, I'd go with this one, and if you're doing paper piecing or smaller projects by hand, go for the mini ones. So they're 5, there's only £1 more, 5 of those for £13.99, and again, they're so strong I can't pull them open that way, but easy when you just squish them to one side. So that's the way to do it. That sounded like punch. That's the way to do it. £13.99 for 5 of those. So that's something new for you. We like to bring you something a little new in surgery. We like to bring you things back in surgery as well. And that's exactly what we have done with applique. So that was from Wendy. Wendy wanted to know about what is satin stitch and any hints and tips for applique. So let's have a look. So a satin stitch is basically a zigzag stitch. A zigzag stitch, but you shorten the length of, so it's very close together and it creates a solid line. I wasn't going to use this machine, but I'm going to now. Oh, it's all right. I don't need the plug. I'll use this one. Don't worry, I'm fine. So, I'll show you that first. I'm good. I did it. Thank you. I love it here, you know. Without even asking, so go and get a foot, go and get a foot. It's so helpful. Right, so I'll just show you the basic stitch first. So zigzag, and then we'll start. So we've got quite a wide apart zigzag. And that's probably what you've got on most of your sewing machines. So what we need to do now is to shorten it, so we're squishing it up that way. And if you wanted to, you can make it wider or you could make it narrower. Depends on what you're doing. If you're doing something very fine with applique, then make it narrower. If you're not too confident, then you can just keep it, you can make it longer. So I'm going to go down to 0.4 and let's go up to 4.5 and make it wider and narrower. And then see what happens. Now that's a really nice, dense, solid line. You can tell because the machine's going really slowly. But look at the amount of stitches that it's stitching out. If you want it a little bit looser, then just increase the length of the stitch. And if you wanted the stitch narrower, then decrease the width. So you can go really tiny with this, as I'll show you. So I do like that look. It's really time consuming. So then I stretch the stitches out only slightly, but it's only left a small gap in between. And then you can do a satin stitch, which is only that wide. And I think for fine work, that's quite nice as well, but have a play with it. Another tip for you is I'm using Bondaweb. I tend to use Bondaweb with larger projects, larger applique projects. Because it holds it nice and flat. So if I've got a big piece of applique, maybe a big heart that I want to put on the front of a bag, as you're sewing that, particularly when you're going around curves, it can buckle up the fabric as you're going around. Even with things like 505 spray, it can still buckle, and 505 isn't permanent. Bondaweb is. So that's going to go on the back of my applique piece. So I'm just going to cut out one of the butterflies from this pink butterfly fabric. I'm not going right into the edge. You could do, but I think you get just a nicer effect if you have a border, and then I don't have to worry too much about going around the fiddly bits. And have you noticed the scissors that I'm using? These aren't just a pretty duck face. Duck-billed scissors or applique scissors, they are normally called. I'm not going around the antenna, that's far too fiddly. And there we go. Now the way these work, the bill side isn't sharp. The cutting all comes from this side, so that's not sharp at all there. We don't want that to be sharp, because if it was, it's going to cut through some of our stitches. So you have got a cutting motion, you know, don't go running your fingers up and down it or anything, but the cut comes from just inside. And you can see the shape of them as well. They've got a bent handle. So these are perfect if you need to cut something that's flat, like applique, or if you're using them for upholstery, because they'll sit flat on your work as you're cutting. So normally with a pair of scissors, let me find a pair of scissors. Don't have to look very far. Even with shears that have a bent handle to enable you to use the majority of the blade on your work, when you do that, you're lifting the fabric up. Which is fine most of the time, but there is a little bit of kind of movement there. You have to be quite careful if you're doing something intricate. Whereas when using your scissors this way, it keeps it flat. So if I'm trimming back threads, I can get really, really close to the ends of the thread without actually, come here, lifting up the fabric. And they're really sharp as well, sharp to the point, as I like to say. But when you're using applique, and again, I'm going to use my Bondaweb with that bit, which I should have put on the fabric before I cut it out, so I'm going to do that again. Otherwise it'll end up on the iron, unless you have one of our silicone ironing sheets. I don't know if we've got those in stock. Oh, I've done it again, look at me. So, let's do that one, don't want to waste too much fabric. So Bondaweb goes on the back. You can iron it from either side, just make sure I've got the butterflies over the top. As it's a canvas fabric, I am going to do it from the back as well, just to make sure that the heat's gone on the back. Like so. So no steam with the Bondaweb, nice and hot as your fabric will take it. So that's well and truly on there. Then we'll cut out the applique shape. So let's do the little diddy one here. So you can use them just like normal scissors as well, so they're really versatile little things. But we only brought these to you a few weeks ago, sold out completely ever so quickly. Right, so that's that. And then I'm just going to plonk it on here. So we need to peel away the paper backing. It's come away quite easily. And that's now transferred glue onto the back of my applique piece. So let's now iron that in place. So again, nice hot iron, no steam required. That's now stuck. So if you're just using Bondaweb on its own, As long as it's not going to be something that goes in the wash a lot, then that's stuck on there and it's not going to fray. So let's do a bit of satin stitch around the edge. And I'll show you where those scissors really come in handy. I've put my foot on the foot pedal for the other sewing machine. Honestly. And then literally sew around the edge. So slow down a bit when you go to the curves. I've missed a bit here. That is deliberate. So I'm just going to inch that around a little bit. When you stop in a V shape, stop with the needle down and do it on the left-hand side. And then turn around so that the two edges overlap. Two edges of the stitching overlap, sorry. If you're going to stop on a curve, again stop with the needle down, again on the right hand side this time, because then when you turn your work around, the stitches will overlap. Your stitches on a curve will open out like a fan. So if you stop with the needle on the right hand side, they don't fan out too much, if that made sense. Okay, we've got the gist of that, haven't we? The applique scissors, where I was sewing around the top, I've actually missed a little bit. So I haven't got the edge there sewn in. Now your applique scissors, this is what they're designed for, will go underneath the edge, but that's not going to cut through your stitches. So I can now trim this right back to the stitches without damaging them. If I'd got an ordinary pair of scissors and I was trying to do something like that, there's a chance for a start that I'll go through the bottom fabric, which I don't want, and you're trying to lift that up and cut, and I can't even cut through that, look. You'll never find that as accurate as you will do when you're using the right scissors for the job, and those are the right scissors for the job. What you'll also find them useful for is if you're trimming back something, if you're doing upholstery, and maybe you've put some trimming around the edge. If you've got something that's really flat like that, and you can't get behind it, because if you've got a pair of scissors, you will need to get behind it to lift it up to try and cut off whatever you're cutting off. But you don't with this one, you can cut from the top. So you know, if it's against something like trimming, or if you're you've got your fabric stretched over the frame or the chair or a stool, whatever it is, and then you're going to put your staples all around the edge, you can now trim that back up to the staples. You can't do that with scissors, because basically your hand's in the way, isn't it? You know, you think about it, if I'm trimming up, really easy with those, because they're, when you see the shape of them, I've got room for my fingers in here, and that's still flat. So if this is my stool, I can snip right up to it without my fingers being in the way, whereas with a pair of scissors, it's not going to be accurate. I've only got one point where those scissors are going to be able to cut, and they're pointing into the chair, not flat to it like I want it to. So you're going to end up cutting into your fabric. Lots of reasons why applique scissors are really useful, and not just for applique as well. So I hope that's helped a little bit, Wendy. Really, really busy for these. So lots of you got these in the basket, so please can you go through to check out. But I think there's quite a few things. When you look at things like this and things like this on the website, and you thought, no idea what they're for. I think it can be the same with your scissors, because you look at that and just think, no idea. Or you might look at these and think, applique scissors, I don't do applique. But that's the reason, that's not the reason why you don't do applique. That's the reason why these are really, really useful. That's what they do. So it allows you to cut flat. Quarter of the stock sold out, and those are back in stocks. We've had a question about a walking foot as well. And that was, oh, Jan Potter, could I fit a walking foot? Sounds like Cinderella. Not all machines come with walking feet. You can buy them for, I'd say, all machines. And this is the way that they work. So, you know, you've got your feed dogs on the bottom of the machine, and they will feed the fabric through from the bottom. Well, it's actually that way, isn't it? Away from you. When you're using thick layers of fabric particularly, or several layers of fabric together, they can slip. This is a walking foot, so it walks across the top of your fabric. It's sometimes called a dual feed foot, and it's got the equivalent of feed dogs underneath here, so they're spiky. So this bar here will sit on top of the needle clamp, so that's the screw that holds your needle in place. And as you're sewing, the needle goes up and down, and it makes this foot walk at the same rate as your feed dogs at the bottom. So if you've ever, I mean, if you're quilting, absolutely, definitely you need one, because you've got 3 very different layers of fabric. You've got your top fabric. If you'll patchwork that, then you've got 2 layers of fabric over your seams, maybe 3 layers depending on how you press your seams. Then you'll have your wadding, and then you've got your backing fabric. So to make sure that everything goes through at the same rate, then you need a walking foot. If you're sewing slippery fabric, so if you've got a PU, the back of your PU will be knitted probably, so that's fabric, and that will glide on your machine really easily, but the top will need to be fed through because the friction the friction on the bottom of the foot will stop the fabric from pulling through properly. But if you're making things like curtains, you'll have probably a heavy weight of curtain fabric for the top and then a fine fabric for the lining, very different weights of fabric. And no matter how you try, and well, you will cut them really accurately, by the time you've sewn that 90-inch length for your conservatory windows, when you get down to the bottom, you probably find one or the other has grown. Walking foot will prevent that. And this is how you fit it. So you have, on most domestic sewing machines now, you will have a snap-on foot. So you'll have a button or a lever at the back, and that drops off. This is called the ankle. You need to take that off as well. Make sure you don't lose it, because you won't be able to get any of your feet back on again. So you'll have a screwdriver in your toolkit, your sewing machine toolkit, and we're going to unscrew that so you can't see what I'm doing, and take it off. Some of these ankles will clip off without the screw coming all the way out. Some of them have a hole in them, so you have to take the whole thing off. But do make sure that you put that somewhere safe now, because as if you lose it, you won't be able to use any of your other feet. This foot is then going to wrap around that hole, but this bar has to go on top of the needle clamp, otherwise the foot's not going to work at all. So before you clip that on, lift that up over the top of that needle clamp, and then your screw goes back in place here. Which is really difficult to do with the left hand when you're right-handed. And except normally I would turn the machine around so I can see what I'm doing. And in fact, it is easier with this one to just put the screw in a little bit first. So I'm making this look really difficult, aren't I? It's really not. Oh, come on. That's the only time I ever talk to my sewing machine. And that's normally what I say to, come on. I'm going to get this question answered in full. I do hope you're watching, Jan. This is the little 560 that I'm using at the moment, which doesn't actually come with a walking foot, but let's say for most sewing machines they are available. I would as well I would order the foot that is appropriate for your machine. So if you've got a Janome, go for a Janome. If you've got a brother, buy a brother one. If you've got a singer, buy a singer one, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'll show you this in just a sec, Jan, bear with me. So I'm screwing the screw back in again. You can use walking feet for most of the stitches on your sewing machine. Have a look in your manual just in case you can't. So you can still use it for decorative stitches and things like that. And you don't need to take the foot off for the most part, but you will find it a bit noisier than a regular foot on your machine, because there's a little bit of clunking going on, so don't worry about that. Oh, come on. That's it. So you can see from that side actually, there's the clamp over the top of the wheel clamp. That's the needle going up and down, bouncing the foot up and down. So then you can see, if I just put that down, you can see those feed teeth working at the same rate as the teeth in the bottom are working. But that's the important thing, Jan, because if you don't have that little bar over the top of the wheel clamp, it ain't going to work. Right, so that was that. Oh, hi, Val. Oh, she loves the bag making. She's going to make a table runner today. Do I need to put batting in, e.g. fusible? If you're making a table runner that's going to have heat in it, see if you can get hold of some heat reflective wadding batting, which is a polyester, but it's like got a silver sheen to it, and that reflects the heat, so it can help to protect your table if you're going to put something hot on it. I can't think what it's called off the top of my head. I shall think of that. Otherwise, yeah, fusible fleece, absolutely fine. That'd be nice. Oh, just before we move on, let me go back again to the sew tiles. These are the 5-pack of the minis. They're really popular. We've had a suggestion. In fact, Lynn sent a message and she says, an idea for the new magnets. Oh, great for making your own needle holder. What a good idea. So if you're hand sewing and you don't want to leave the needles pinned onto your work when you've finished, such a good idea. I shall share it with you in a minute when I've heard all of it. She's suggesting if you're doing a lot of hand sewing, sometimes you leave your needle in your work before you finish. So she's suggesting that you make a little magnetic needle holder, because if you leave the needle in your fabric, it can rust eventually, and then it can mark your fabric. So she's suggesting that you make a little needle holder with the magnets and just put the needle on that instead of being stuck in your fabric. What a good idea. I've just joined us, these are new in this hour. Been really busy for these. Sew Tiles Minis, they're £12.99. We've got a 5-pack, there's a 10-pack, or we've got a 5-pack of the larger ones available for you as well. So have a look on the website for those. Plique scissors back in stock again. Half of the stock of your applique scissors has now sold out. Okay, where should we go next? So fitter will tick that one. Shall we do how to sew in a straight line? Do I have any tips? And that was Jamie. Yes, I do. There's a few things you can do. This is the one that, have we got one of these open? That's not open. I don't like opening things when they're not mine. I'm going to open it anyway. A piece of quilter's tape would work really well. Put across the bed of your sewing machine. So, where are we? Masking tape would be fine, but can be a little bit too strong. There's actually an arrow on the end of this to say where to peel it up, and I still can't do it. Oh. So quilter's tape is 1/4 inch wide. So it's designed to be used on fabric to help you sew in a straight line on your fabric. I'm going to do that. There we go. So if I'm quilting something, instead of marking with a marking tool, I can just put my quilter's tape across there, and it rips really easily. And then you just sew along the side of it. You're getting loads on here as well, so if you were doing a little bit of cross-hatching or something, then you can just do this. So masking tape you could use, but if you sew through masking tape, it can be a bit of a devil to get out from underneath the stitches. Doesn't really matter so much with this one, but the idea is that you sew just along the edge of that if you're quilting. If it's a seam that you're sewing, I mean, you can use it as a seam guide, so you can put this along the edge of your fabric if you wanted to do it that way, but what you probably find easier is to put it over the bed of your sewing machine, and particularly with seam allowances. So your throat plate, which is the silver bit that's underneath the needle, will have markings on it, so you can see on the... I'm glad I got this little machine. I did have the 720, I'd never be able to do this. So you can see you've got all of the markings there, usually in inches and in centimetres. If you're dressmaking, it's probably 5/8 of an inch. I can't actually see those on my machine very clearly. So the way that you can kind of mark that is to put that directly along the 5/8 Where are you? There you are. Mark, and all the way across the front of your machine. So now not only have you got the perfect seam allowance, you can measure that now from the needle to make sure it's exactly the distance that you want to. But now when you're sewing, you can just thread your fabric alongside that tape. Oh, go on, and you go. Lifting the needle up would help. And as you are sewing, particularly if you're new, don't look at the needle, look here somewhere. The needle's going to go where the needle's going to go. You're guiding the fabric to keep it straight. So don't pull it or push it underneath the needle because you're going to get a wobbly stitch line. But look around about here and just make sure that fabric's going through. If you're guiding this against that tape, you're going to get a straight line, so don't look at the needle. I liken it to riding a bike. When you first learn to ride a bike, and I can remember doing that, down Victoria Avenue with my sister hanging onto the back of it, and when I turned around, she wasn't there, she'd let me go. But when you're learning to ride a bike, you tend to look at the wheel as you're riding, not at where you're going, and that's when you wobble. So don't look at the needle when you're sewing, look at where you're actually feeding the fabric into the needle. And make sure that your fabric is supported as well, as in, if you're sewing like this, and this is a big long piece of heavy fabric, this is all going to pull away because of the weight of it as well. So make sure you have a support underneath here. If you don't have an extension table, then you could even put the back of a chair up against the table and just something to support it to help. You know, if you're quilting, the weight of all that fabric is just going to pull your fabric away from there. 560 does come with an extension table. Doesn't have a walk-in foot, but it does come with an extension table. And you get 2 metres of fabric with this one as well. Better take that off, I don't know. That's going to confuse John. We've got tape on that for. Poor John. Because we're all kind of isolating at the moment. We don't get to see anybody. I haven't seen John since he first started. Anyway, let's make sure I keep those nice and safe. Right, we've had a question about sewing circles as well. If I can do that on this machine. Joanne wants to know how to cut the perfect circle and how to sew the perfect circle because she's quilting. Okay, cutting the perfect circle, I have a solution for you. And there we go. I'll use some of this new fabric that we've got for you as well, just to show you. We've got a bundle, we've got a whole bundle of stars. This is pretty. I can imagine a quilt for a child's bedroom or a cot quilt made out of this. I think that would be lovely. Tiny little stars, look nice for smaller projects as well if you're doing English paper piecing. It's cotton poplin, so it's dressmaking quality. Let's have a chat about that for a minute, shall we? Who's that? Linda, what types? She wanted to know the different types of fabric. What is the difference between fabrics? Basically, this is cotton, and this is cotton, and I've got some linen as well. I'll show you that in a second. Cotton isn't the fabric. Cotton is the fibre used to construct the fabric. So this is a poplin, and this one is a canvas. Your in-between would be a quilting cotton, which is the here we go. That's a quilting weight of cotton. So as cotton is the fibre that is then used to create. You can have a knitted cotton, you can have a cotton jersey. So cotton is the fibre, and then it's constructed in different ways to produce different types of fabric. So a cotton poplin is quite a narrow thread, but lots of them, so it gives a really fine finish. So it's not see-through and it has a really lovely drape. If you wanted to quilt with it, that's fine, but this is perfect for dressmaking. And normally with a poplin it's wider than quilting cotton, though this will be 140 centimetres wide to accommodate dress patterns, and your quilting cotton tends to be 112 inches wide. So quilting cotton has a looser weave than a poplin, and then you've got your canvas, which is a thicker thread. So it's still woven in 2 directions, so you've got 2 threads, but it's a thicker thread that's used for this one. If you're looking at something like a denim, that's actually a twill, and a twill will have a weave from the top to the bottom, so that's your straight grain, that's the warp, and then your cross grain is called the weft, and with a twill you have a diagonal weave as well. So it could be a cotton twill, but denim is a cotton twill, thank you, that's made with, I told you how helpful people are here. And you can see the diagonal. You should be able to just make that out. Denim's made with 2 different colour fabrics, fibres. So there's, you can't quite see, that it's woven that way, it's woven that way, and then it's woven on the diagonal as well. But that's the only difference between a cotton twill and a denim, is the fact that denim uses 2 different colours. And then you get that lovely kind of Western jean kind of look. Oh, and denim's dyed with indigo, and indigo is a natural dye. There are chemicals in there as well, but it's a natural dye made from plants which fades deliberately as well. So that's the difference there. So I hope that's explained cottons. We'll have a chat about jerseys another time. Oh, linens. Linens are a different kettle of fish because these are made from cottons, from cotton pods, and linen is made from flax. It's not the flax seeds, it's the stems of the flax that's used for that one. So linen, very natural, tends to be expensive because of the way that everything is harvested and put together. This linen is going to be featured in the next hour, but this has actually been stonewashed, so it's soft and it's textured and it doesn't crease as much as a regular linen. But you can mix fabrics together like that. So you could have a linen cotton mix, you can have a linen elastane mix, so you can put a bit of stretch in there. You can mix your cottons with polyester to make them last a bit longer and keep their shape a little bit better. So there's hundreds of different combinations. So I hope that's explained something for you. I was cutting circles, wasn't I? Went off on a bit of something then. So, cotton lawn's even lighter than cotton poplin, not something I like to use personally because it tends to be sheer and see-through. This isn't, it's a poplin, so it's really nice quality. And I love the colours as well. There's kind of a rosy gold, there's mint and lavender and red, and navy. So 2.5 metres altogether for £18.99. But I'm going to cut some circles out of one of these. So let's do the pink. Circles can be notoriously difficult to cut, or even to find a template to cut all of the different sizes. Drawing around a plate is fine, but you tend to have an 8-inch plate and a 12-inch plate, and that's about it. So, I say so a lot. Stop saying so. So. This is the cutter, and there is a blade inside there, but it's safe because it only cuts when the handle is depressed. Not as in it needs cheering up, as in when it's pressed down. And it's got a guard on it as well. So your blade's inside here, and you can see it's tiny because it needs to be, because it needs to sit inside your template. So with this one, you can cut up to 12 inches for a circle. Let's do that. And if I just show you on the ruler, actually, I'll use it the right way around. You've got the centre point, and then there's a line across here. In fact, there's 2 lines. So the top one is your 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you're cutting a circle, you can ignore that because you don't want to seam allowance straight down the middle, so you'll use this line. But if you're making a semicircle, so maybe you want to make a circle but from 2 different colours of fabric, then you're going to use that line and a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When you're putting your fabric on the fold goes on the seam allowance. So let's move that down to here. And it does say on the ruler as well, over on that side, where are you? I always get that bit wrong. Fabric fold line. So that's the line that it needs to go on. Because when you're cutting the circle, you need to start cutting off the edge of your fabric. Let's try and not waste too much. So that's all lined up nicely. There's 2 little grooves on the bottom of your cutter here. They go in the groove of your mat. So fingers on there. When you're using any rulers of any kind as well, use your fingers spread out to hold it down. Don't flatten your hand like that. If you flatten your hand on, you're going to find more chance of everything slipping than when you're putting pressure on with your fingers like so. Just a little tip. It is surgery after all. And then you go around. It doesn't matter that the blade is now coming towards me, which is a big no-no if you're using a rotary cutter, because it's a safe blade. And there is your perfect circle. That would be, and in fact, if you have maybe you've got a 12-inch plate and you draw around it, I can't cut a circle with a pair of scissors as smoothly as this, so you need to have something that resembles a circle, but I always get little snip marks in it, so this is the way, that's the way to go. And sewing in a circle, if you're quilting circles, we've got a foot for you now, which is this one. Now this is for Janome sewing machines. Janome are the same company as Elna. So anything that fits a Janome will fit an Elna as well. And this is a clever one. Let's take all the bits out. So there's a little lid on this spike. Make sure you always put the lid back on again, because that spike is incredibly sharp. You can measure the gauge here. Oops. So. Where's the lever? And there's a little lever that moves across. Oh, that way, that's it. Sorry, Val's emailed again. Oh, she said thanks for saying about a table run and what to you. Oh, I still can't remember what that was called. I am sure somebody will put a post on Facebook or email in. It's the wadding that's the heat reflective one. So it's got like a silver, it's got kind of a silver sheen to it, but it's actually heat resistant. It's got a very strange name. Anyway, we don't sell it anyway, so we can move along here and choose the size of your circle. So your finished circle is marked in inches. So we can go right up to a 10-inch circle with this one. And this sits in the on your sewing machine in where your bobbin goes in. It does need to be a machine that takes it. Most Janome and Elna sewing machines, if you're buying a new one or you've bought one over the last few years, will have a lid that looks like that. And I tell you what, when you get this home, there is a template on the back to make sure that it's the right size, and that fits in there perfectly. So before you open it, do that with your lid, just to make sure you've got the right one. These are all stuck down, so please don't open it before you test to make sure that you've got the right one, because if you do get the wrong one, you can send it back. So take the little lid off, and then this sits in the hole. So it sinks into the area where that lid was, and then you'll have a little screw, and that goes in the hole at the side there. So you'll have a screw hole in your throat plate. Insult Bright, that's the one. Thank you, Sue. I knew somebody would come to my rescue. INSUL-BRITE. Right, but we don't have any. But that's what it is. Let's use... Oh, shame to use the canvas. What colour thread have I got? Let's use the lilac one. Make your mind up, Deborah. So I'm just going to cut a square of this out. There we go. Oh, now then, you will need to use some stabilisers on the back of fine cottons like this. Oh, iron-on interfacing would be ideal. I'll tell you what, I'll do it on this now. I've cut that out because this piece has already got some interfacing on the back. A floppy fabric like this one, or even up to the canvases, if you're using a cotton fabric to sew around in circles, you will need to put stabiliser on the back, because otherwise when your fabric goes around it'll bunch up a little bit. You can use a tearaway stabiliser, which I've normally got loads of that down here. And maybe use a little bit 505. Oh, I didn't know that was down there. No, I'll do a little one on here then. Yeah, use your 505 with a tearaway stabiliser and then just pull everything away at the end of it. So that's just a little tip for you. So we'll do a smaller circle. So take your spike, the lid off your spike, and let's go down to that kind of size. And then this bar just clips back over again, and that secures it in place. And then your fabric goes on the spike, cover it back up again so you don't catch yourself. Put your foot down, and you can use decorative stitches as well. Let's do a zigzag. And then sew in a circle. Very cleverly using white fabric on white. So I'm going to change that in a minute and do the job properly. I'm just, yeah. I'm going to use this lovely shade of brown. If you haven't seen before, we've been given a box full of threads to use for demonstration in the show. Which is fine if you're sewing something brown or the occasional purple. Reminds me a little bit of, what was the song about? The car that's made in every shade of black. You can have it in any colour you like, as long as it's black. Okay, thread this up really quickly. I would never buy a sewing machine without a needle threader, you know. Oh, that's in the way though. Can't do that. Can we do that? Oh, that's asking for trouble. Thread your machine up before you put that spike in there. You know what's going to happen. Okay, so I did do a zigzag stitch. So let's try a decorative stitch. Like, we'll do cross stitch number 49. Let's see what happens there. So let's try that out of the way. Well, that's quite nice. But you can see why you need the stabiliser on the back. So don't touch the fabric, just let the machine do the job itself, and that will sew a very nice little cross stitch. I'm going to try another one. Let's try number 45. Oh, and that's making an arc. That's a nice one. So that could be like a flower. I like that one better. So let's take that out. You can do, and then you can do kind of concentric circles. So you can move the spike over a little bit. So you can sew exactly the same on the inside. You can make them larger. So you could do some lovely decorative effects. It was, sorry, who was that for? Oh, Joanne. Joanne, if you're quilting, then you can use a stitch like that to create some beautiful designs on your quilts. Might be easier with the quilt as you go. If you're doing a big quilt, then you're not kind of going to get it underneath there and allow the whole thing to turn around. So if you're doing the quilt as you go, or if you're just quilting something like a bag panel or something like that, that would be very nice. Okay, let's take that off again. With a screwdriver. Those are plique scissors, by the way, less than 20 of those now remaining. We better get them back in stock again, hadn't we? Right, so I'm just going to take that out and put it back in the box so that the next presenter doesn't come along and say, what's that? What have you done that for? And don't lose the little screw. Sandra's looking for embroidery scissors. She did say, that came through on my Facebook page, and she was saying, you always talk about scissors having to be sharp to the point. I do, because a lot of the time scissors aren't. So we have from the little scissors, we do have some little scissors for you. In fact, the applique scissors are really good for that. Should we have a look at, is it these ones that we do? These are the ones that I use at home. These are Fiskars, and they are sharp to the point. And this is what I mean by that. If I'm cutting into, maybe I'm making a hole for a zip to go in, or if I'm cutting into curves and I need to go right up to the point there, I don't want a pair of scissors that doesn't cut to the point, because then you're cutting like this and you've got that kind of sawing motion and you can't really see where you're going when you get to the point, so there's a chance that you could do that and cut straight through the stitches. So I want a pair of scissors that I can see exactly where I'm cutting and cut right up to the stitch without actually cutting through the stitch. Like that. Tiny, tiny little ones. So those are fabulous little scissors. They're only £13.99. You could do the same with your applique scissors. So again, sharp to the point. So you can see where you're going. You can get right in there and really cut into the seam without going into the stitches. But remember, with these ones, I can then cut right up against those stitches, which is a lot easier than cutting with a pair of scissors. So you can cut flat and right up to the stitch. They're fabulous. Those are £16.99. I don't think they're going to last. I think we're going to be selling out of those rather soon. Oh, Nicole has been asking about stay stitching, understitching and ease stitching. So I have prepared a little something for you to show you. These are terms that you'll find in dressmaking instructions. So I'll leave the brown in there at the moment. If you're making something that has a curve, so if you have a neckline or an armhole, as you tend to have in tops, part of that cut will be on the bias. Whenever you're cutting anything that's curved, there will be an area that's on the bias, and bias stretches. Weave doesn't, so your cross weave and your straight weave don't stretch very much, but this is the area that can stretch. So this is the area that could stretch. So stay stitching is literally a way of sewing around here before, just through one piece of fabric before you start constructing the whole thing, to stop this area from stretching. You'll see that a lot on if you're using jersey fabrics, because you don't, although you want a fabric that has a stretch, you don't want the neckline to be stretching as you're sewing it. You don't want the armholes to be stretching as you're sewing it. So you're going to sew inside the seam allowance. We don't want to see the stitches, and it's literally a straight stitch. Make sure you're not stretching this fabric as you're sewing. Slow that down a little bit. And as you're sewing, that will be on any of the curved areas. Your pattern will tell you to do that, but it's good form. It's worth the extra time. You might think, well, it's going to take me ages to do all of those pieces. It's worth it, because that's really going to hold it in place. And then, what was the other one? Stay stitching, ease stitching. Let me show you. Ease stitching and understitching. So this is a sleeve. I'll sew that back together in just a second. And ease stitching is a way of pulling the fibres of your fabric together to make the area smaller, but without gathering, without the fabric puckering. So on your pattern, and again this will all be on your instructions, you've got 2 dots here. So make sure you've got the right one for your job, and you're going to mark that onto your fabric in between those 2 dots. So get my marking tool again. So I'm just using an erasable pen. You could, if you wanted to, mark your seam allowance on this bit as well, because you're going to sew just within the seam allowance. I don't know if you knew, but if you have a plastic tape measure, which I haven't got with me, you measure it first of all, but normally, oh, I can see a plastic tape measure. It's on the mannequin at the back of the studio. Thank you. a plastic tape measure is normally 5/8 of an inch wide. Thank you. So measure first of all, but you can just use your tape measure now to mark your seam allowance like that, without having to actually measure it on your fabric. So just go around the edge like that. You can buy seam guides and all that kind of thing, or hem guides that'll do the same thing, but if you've got a plastic tape measure, then that's... Oh gosh, this hour's gone quickly. I didn't get a chance to do my zip in the top of a bag. Oh, I better be quick. So you can do that and that. I'm just doing that to be quick. I know that's not accurate. And then we're going to stitch. You'll need to pull your thread through. So if you've used thread snippers on your machine, then you need to pull the thread out because you need the tail ends showing through. So I'm leaving that out there. So I'm not snipping off the bottom thread there either. Stitch length the same as what you'd normally do for your seam, and so just inside the seam allowance, so just inside that line that I've just drawn. I'll put my foot on the foot pedal for the sewing machine again. Oh, I've come undone. What have I done there? Oh, we're going all by ourselves, that's clever. Speed that up. Alright. And again, this is just on one layer of fabric. But you want to be just inside your seam line and no snips. And then normally easier to pull the bottom thread rather than the top. But we're going to pull the thread and not gather. It will work. It may seem as though it's gathering, but you can actually shrink your fabric quite a lot by doing that. So where the seam's going to go, there's no actual gathering on the seam, but it looks like it is there. I'll show you the difference actually. If I do, let's do a mark here, it's a thick bit, and a mark there, and then I'll just use a bit of the bottom fabric on here just to show you that and that. So that's the same distance. And then we're going to sew from one line to another. Let's take this out and pull the bottom thread through. Where are you? There you are. Talking to my work again. And then you can shrink this up. Now that's gathered, we don't want that at all. We want it to be flat. So just make it nice and even. Fold it over so that you've got the seam on the edge. And there's no puckering on that seam line. It's puckering either side of it, but not actually on that seam line. So I've now shrunk that little piece of fabric by about 1 inch. You probably won't need it to be that much, and I say it does look like it's gathered a little bit, but that's the key thing. Along the actual stitch line, it's not gathered at all. You get a perfectly straight line. If you want to gather, that's fine. You know, pull it up and make a nice little puff sleeve out of it, but that's what eave stitching is. And under stitching, I was going to put all this together, but I'm way out of time. You will use... It's when you're putting interfacing on the inside of a dress or a collar, you'll have another piece of fabric that's cut to the same shape as the neck. So normally the shoulders are sewn together at this point, and all of the facing is sewn together at the shoulders as well. So you have a loop of facing that goes onto your work. So that is going to go there. So this is not the stage that you do it. I've got a fusible interfacing on the back of here. That's what you use it for. So this is a non-woven That's another fabric type for you, non-woven fusible, and that stays in. You finish off the edge of this first of all, and I'd use my overlocker to do that. I've got an overlocker coming up in the next hour. Or you could use a zigzag stitch, or even your pinking shears to finish that off. And then we're going to sew with your seam allowance, so I'm not sewing over that stay stitch. Keep putting my foot on that foot pedal. And again, this isn't a proper garment, so you're going to be a lot more accurate when you make yours. Just come around the side. So if you're going to snip into your curves or trim back your seam allowance, you do it now. Have a look at the instructions on your pattern, because different manufacturers do things in different ways. And then you will take this to the iron and fold it under so that you've got a nice neat, let's do it properly. So you've got a nice neat neckline with the seam sitting right on the top. So I find it easier to kind of press the seam first. I don't mind a bit of steam for that. And then we'll fold that over so that the seam is right on the edge. I think we need a surgery day, don't we? There we go. So that's that. And your understitching is where you're going to sew the facing to the seam allowance, but not on the outside of your fabric. So there's my seam allowance, there's my facing, and I'm going to sew those two pieces together, probably about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. And this helps to stop the facing coming up and rolling up, just keeps it nice and flat. Oh, I've got a hello to say. Whoop, there we go. Stop, snip. Yeah, I've got Samantha. Samantha Blackburn. Hello. That was it, just hello. Your husband messaged me and said, could I say hello to you? So I said I would, so I did. Hello. Are you watching? Just send me a message if you are. Just come and say hello back again. So on the top of your garment now, you don't see any stitches whatsoever. And it's on the underside of your garment. That's my understitching. And that's going to help it fold back. So it's not actually sewn to the outside, but it will help it to kind of sit in the right direction. So that's what understitching is. Right. That's going to make a pretty top. Dawn, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. And loving the show, especially the bag making. Oh, I've answered that one. Did I answer that one, Val? Yes, I did do that one. I'm talking to myself now. Sandra, making a tote bag with a zip and a gusset. Gusset in the top, and I'm struggling to work out how to do it without seeing raw edges. The easiest way to do that is to make a zip panel, which is, funnily enough, explained in my book. That was not a made-up question. That was a coincidence. So let's take a piece of canvas. Do that one because I've cut into that one already. With your tote bag, does it have a base? Have you cut out the square corners so it goes around a corner like that, so it's square? If so, you'll need to, say you've got, like in the bottom of the bag that I made earlier on, that base measures just under 4 inches across because I cut out two 2-inch squares from the corners. So when you sew that together with your seam allowance, that's probably 3.5 inches. I've got a 3.5 inch base, which means that the top of my tote bag, even though it hasn't got a gusset all the way around, will have a 3.5 inch bit down the side. If it was square, it would be like that. So I'd need to make the zip panel 3.5 inches across, finished size, for it to keep that shape. It's easier to do it this way and sew the zip panel into the lining before you put the bag together than try and insert a whole zip panel into the top of the bag. That can be quite difficult. I'm going to use a rotary cutter, and I've got a little zip. So this isn't accurate to the size of that bag, but it's the same kind of way of doing it. So the panel is going to be shorter than the zip. I have had a bit of glue on this one, so excuse that. Oh, and I've got one of those in the end as well. I want both of the ends of the zip showing, and I've put little tabs on there in fabric just to cover up the nasty end. So you've got 2 squares of fabric on the end, and the zip section is going to just go in between the zip. This is a very tiny one to do that with, I do apologise. It'll make sense in a minute. Let's take my ruler. That's going to be the length, and width-wise, again, if you want that to measure 3.5 inches, I would do 2 inches either side. So I'd need 2 2-inch strips, or 4 2-inch strips if you're making a lining for it as well. Let's do that. That's 2.5. So I've got 2 pieces there and 2 pieces here, so I'm having the lining in the same colour as the outside of my bag. Like that. Fold the ends over and sew those. I'm not going to sew them now because that'll take quite a while. Stitch those down. So just finger crease for now. Or I could do that, couldn't I? So give that a quick press. This is the roll and press. It's a great way of just pressing really quick seams if you don't want to put the iron on. It is very effective. It's barrel shaped, so all of the pressure is focused on one area. I haven't put the iron on, I'm not burning my fingers, and it's really, really quick. So if you've only got a few seams to press open and you don't want to put your big iron on, then use your roll and press. On a hard surface. Doesn't even have to be a cutting board, you could use it on the table. These are going to go right sides together over the side of the zip. Do them individually if that makes it easier for you, but I'll do those both together for speed's sake. So I'd normally have the zipper foot on the machine, but again I just want to be quick. Oh, wrong stitch. Keep putting my foot on the foot pedal for the opposite machine. Wondering why it's not working. Let's just moving the needle over a bit. That'll do. Okay. So did I get that? Yeah. So I'm doing it again. Oh, what am I doing? I've got a blind hem stitch now. Straight stitch, please. It's like demonstrating all of the stitches on a completely inappropriate project. Right, so we'll do this. We'll fold the ends and, well, those will have been sewn, remember. And then we'll do the same with the other side. In fact, no, we'll do this first. What I need, we want to get rid of those raw edges. We don't want to see raw edges when that's sewn into the bag, because this is going to be top stitched into the lining, so it needs to be a completely independent panel without any raw edges. So those need to be sewn right sides together. So the zip's in the middle, and you're going to sew down this edge here. Every time I've got my foot on that foot pedal. And then you turn this through. So turn it all through to the right side. So just keep pulling at the zip until it all comes out. Come on through. This is in my book. It's also in my tote bags book. Iron finger, and another one of those things that you think, what on earth is that for? So we have that. So again, there's no raw edge on the edge of that one. And then we're going to do the same with the opposite side here. So right sides together. That's one, that's two. Zip in the middle. And again, being obviously a lot more careful than this, I am rushing rather. And sew those two together. Over there, that's that, there we go. Snip it off, and then we need to do the same as we did on the other side, but there's rather a lot of fabric in here now. So we want these two pieces to be sewn, whoa, there you go, to be sewn right sides together. So you're going to take this side and roll it up, so it's out of the way, fold those two over the top, and then sew. Make sure you don't sew through the zip or you sew through the opposite side. Those are well out of the way. So let's do that. It's a lot easier with a bigger panel, I have to say. It's not. I wouldn't normally be fitting titchy little zips like this in a bag. Every time. So I just heard that Sandra's put a post on saying that she's got a box bottom. I'm sure there's figure control pants you can buy for things like that. No, thank you. Yeah, a box bottom. This is the easiest way of doing it. So I've sewn down the side with the opposite side all rolled out of the way, and let's pull this one through. So it may take a while, but it works. Yeah, stay with me. There's no speeding this up. Mind, you can watch it on YouTube and speed it up there, I suppose. So pull the whole thing through, and then you've got a complete panel, which you're going to make an awful lot neater than I have. And in fact, you could sew now along here, down there, and down that side. And then that part of the panel is going to go into the lining of your bag. And remember, you've got your fabric tabs on each end because we don't want to see the ends of the zip. That's not very pretty. But that's the way that I do it. So I hope that's answered your question. It's all in the book. Oh, right at the beginning of the show, which was about a year ago, we brought you these little sew tiles. These are new today for you. We have a 10-pack of minis. And if you weren't watching it, I shan't take the little ones out again, but they work in the same way but smaller. These have got 2 magnets inside them, and you will push them away from the base and then one either side of your fabric, and it's like having a magnetic pin. So those are 10 of the minis. So if you're quilting, I should just show you again, on those areas that you can't get to, so you can use your wonder clips around the edge, fabulous. You can pin, takes ages, or you can just slip one magnet underneath your work and one on the top, and then that's holding it together. And they're a really strong bond, which is why you need to slide them sideways to get them off again. So the little ones, you're getting a pack of 10 of those, remember. We do have a 5-pack for you. Those are the most popular at the moment. Those are £12.99. Or you can go for a 5-pack of the originals for just £13.99. But we've only got 20 of these left. So again, squish to one side. On smaller items as well, if you are English paper piecing and your fingers don't work too well, if you need to hold something as you hand sew, if you need to hold the layers together, then this is ideal for you, because let the magnets do the work, not your fingers. So you can then sew. So really useful. I'm really impressed with those. So we should have finished 15 minutes ago, shouldn't we? We're still here. It's like one of my Facebook lives where I can't switch it off. Still here. Are you still there? They're still here. Happens every week. I did one on Saturday, and my screen froze on the Mac that I use. So I was watching everybody's comments on my phone, but I thought, well, actually, when we come to the end of this, I use the Mac to end the live, and I couldn't. Still here. Still here. Okay, well, we're going to be back again in the next hour. What were we going to do? Pressing hams and everything, weren't we? I was going to explain what a clapper was. Honestly, clapper and hams. Well, I shall share that with you because I thought it was quite funny. When we have a product list of everything that we're going to be doing to answer your questions in the show, the clapper and the ham were going to be in the show that we should be doing now, but we're really late. And I messaged Hannah, who's producing, and just said, can we have the clapper and ham at 10 o'clock, at 9 o'clock? And I said, it sounds like a pub, doesn't it? I'll have it. Going to the clapper and ham. The clapper and ham won't be open at the moment. Anyway, we need to go because we've got another show to do, and we don't want that running over because I've still got 1,000 book to sign outside there. So we'll disappear off and get ready for the show with the overlocker. So it'd be nice if you could stay with us for another 3/4 of an hour. I'll see you in a bit.
Hi, I'm John Cole Morgan, and I'm here to give you my top tips on how I go about enjoying my sewing experience. My first top tip, as everybody knows, rotary cutter safety. If you're not using it and it's not on the mat, that blade must be locked. Please be safe. My second top tip is always buy more fabric than you need. If you don't have it, it's always going to sell out. You're going to struggle to find it, and when you do, it's going to cost you a lot more than when you were going to buy it originally. So buy it all. You always regret the bit you didn't buy. My next tip is, positive or negative, always listen to the advice and opinions of other people. Even if you ignore them, everybody has a different perspective, everybody has a different take on things, and it might help you along the way. The next top tip I have is always buy the most expensive and the most useful and the most practical for your brain product that works for you. Some people prefer different things. Buy what works for you. And my last tip is, this is fun, this is enjoyable, and make sure you are enjoying it. Because there's nothing worse than carrying on with something and hating it and not enjoying it. You need to make sure that you're having fun. Those are my top tips and how it is that I enjoy my sewing experience. I hope they help you, because they have helped me. For more handy tips and demonstrations, make sure you watch us on our Freeview channel 74, Sky channel of 670, otherwise follow us on YouTube on Sewing Street, where you can catch up on past demonstrations and shows. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Hello there, I'm Debbie Shaw, and I would love you to join me on the first Monday of every single month for Sewing Street Surgery. Now, this is a dedicated hour where I answer your questions, and that could be questions about techniques, it could be questions about tools, it could be questions about new products, or maybe something that you've seen that you just don't understand. There's a lot of questions about tensions on sewing machines, and there's a lot of questions about working with different weights of fabrics. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask me, the easiest way to bring a question over to us is to go to our Facebook page and post your question on there. I will collate all of those questions throughout the week. If we need any new products for you, or if we need any new demonstrations, those will all be worked on leading up to that first Monday of the month. So do join me, Debbie Shaw, on Sewing Street Surgery on the first Monday.
Shopping with us couldn't be easier. If you want to shop online, then you can head to our website, www.sewingstreet.com. It will redirect you to our sister channel Jewellery Makers landing page. Don't worry, you haven't gone to the wrong place. We're simply using their website temporarily while we're building our own web shop. Scroll down past the Watch Live part and you'll see all of the products that you will have seen on air on today's live show. You can also shop our catalogue, by clicking a category, clicking a product to view closer, and adding it to your basket. Once you're ready to check out, you will need to create an account, which is absolutely free to do so, but it will mean that you can check out on as many orders as you want throughout the day with still only paying one postage and packaging. If you'd prefer to speak to somebody in our UK-based customer service team, then you can do so via the free telephone line number 0800 001 4433. They will not only help you create an account, but will also help you with any of your online shopping.
Hello there, I'm Debbie, and this is my brand new Sewing Room Secrets quilting book, which is available exclusively signed on Sewing Street right now. So if you haven't seen any of the shows or caught up on YouTube, let me give you a quick flick through, because in here I'm going to teach beginner sewers or beginner quilters all about quilting, different types of quilting, different techniques for quilting and for binding your quilts as well. But not necessarily quilts that go on a bed. There's a quilted Christmas stocking tutorial, there's a quilted placemat tutorial, a quilted storage hanger tutorial. So very simple, achievable projects for the beginner quilter to learn how to sew. So you can't buy this anywhere else at the moment. You certainly can't buy it anywhere else, even on pre-order with a signed copy, but you can get hold of them right now on Sewing Street while we have the stock. You can order on the website, you can order on the phone lines. I do hope you enjoy it. Hello there, welcome back to Sewing Street. For the rest of it, we've only got less than 40 minutes left, haven't we? We're going to be looking at the air thread overlocker. If you are a dressmaker, we touched on dressmaking techniques in the last hour, I think an overlocker is going to be such a useful addition to your machinery, because you're going to be able to sew really, really quickly. These machines stitch at around about 1,250 stitches a minute, which is incredibly fast, considering your sewing machine probably stitches about 650 to 750. But it's a way of finishing off the seams of whatever it is you're making and giving you a professional, long-lasting finish. Particularly if you're selling anything that you're making or you're making things as gifts, it's just nice to have something that you know is going to last a long time, no matter how often it's washed, and that looks good on the inside. If you're sewing with stretch fabric, this is a really important stitch for you because it stretches with the fabric. So you can use this as the seam. Just be aware that you won't have your 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You can do, but you'll need to make sure that you follow the guide on the front here. Otherwise, you can just adjust the seam allowance on your pattern and make it down to 1/4 of an inch, would probably be easier. So it's a 4-thread sewing machine, overlocking machine. I've got 4 different colours in here so that you can see the job of each one of those threads and what it's actually going to do. And I'm just going to frighten you a minute. That's what normally bothers people. It's the threading system. This, if you've seen inside an average overlocker before, it'll look a lot more complicated than this one actually does. But this is an air threader, so this is what makes the threading really, really simple. So I'll talk you through that in just a sec. You can do flat lock seams if you lift the blade up. There's a blade on the side here. This isn't operational while the door's open, so although the light's on, if I put my foot on the pedal, nothing's going to happen, so you're okay to thread with it switched on. But just if you weren't aware of what an overlocker does, that's a little blade on the side just here, and that munches away at the edge of your fabric, so it trims the fabric as you're sewing. And you have 2 lower loopers, those will always be threaded, and 2 needle threads. You can use 1 or 2, and those are going to wrap your thread around the edge of your fabric as you're sewing, so overlocking around the edge of the fabric. Down here you've got an R and an S. You can do a rolled hem seam with that as well. If we don't get time to do a full demonstration on how this works, then do take a look on our YouTube channel, because I have done full demos on there before now. So let's first of all take you through the threading system. with an overlocker, there's no need to lift the foot up like you do with the sewing machine. You can always leave that down, and you can sew off the edge of your fabric. Overlockers expect that from you. So the first thing we're going to do is to chop off the fabrics, the thread, sorry, and stitch them through. So this is forming a chain at the side of the machine here, and that's all of the thread through the thread. So that's that, got no thread in there. Pop that there. So then to rethread, you'll need to always start with the left-hand side. So these are the two threads that go around the loopers at the bottom, and these are the 2 needle threads. You can either use 3 or 2 needles or 1 needle, depending on the width of the stitch that you want and whether you want to do a rolled hem or not. So let's take, first of all, it's important that you do these all in the same order, and if you ever break a thread, that you come back to it in this and rethread in the same order. So I'm going to go underneath this little bit here. Can you see inside here there are tensions? You can just about see them shining silver, and they're like 2 coins or 2 pie dishes that are together. You can feel when you pull the thread through whether that's in the tension or not. It needs to be in there, it needs to be engaged. If it's not, it'll just throw out far too much thread and you won't get a good stitch. So come down to the next little hook underneath here. I'm going to thread the right hand looper first, so let's move this over to the right hand side. I'm then going to lift this up out of the way while I turn the hand wheel towards me, because what I need to do now is to connect all of the tubes down here for the thread to be fed through. So if I turn the hand wheel towards me here, sorry, that way, there they are. So I can't move the hand wheel now, and all of the tubes have come across. So I need to take my thread. It does come with tweezers, which sometimes make this easier. And it needs to go into this hole by about ½ an inch or so. So feed that down, and then that's a pump. Haven't put that in far enough. So going down, a little bit of beeswax on the end of the thread can help to make it a bit stiffer. Oh, pulled it out. A lot easier to do at home, I have to say. Pulled it out again. Try using tweezers. So just grab the end here. Oh, come on. It's like deja vu, this. I spent ages right at the end of one of these shows trying to thread the blooming thing and didn't quite do it. Right, in you go. Fingers crossed. Not down far enough. Oh, shot it out. Do you know, having one of those days today, talking utter nonsense, things not working, going right over the end of the show by 20 minutes. Nobody's watching upstairs. How long have we got? Got half an hour to watch me do this. I've got another one to do when I've done this one. There's 2 of these. Right, you go in there. There, yes! I'm going to pull that loose, just so that you can actually see it go through. So just pump it down. And that thread's now come out here, which is just where we want it to be. So I'm only pulling that loose so that you can see it coming through, and that's the thread shooting out that side there. So I'm going to bring this to the top. We'll go around the back of the blade and out the back of the machine. Then let's see how long it takes to do the red one. So remember, pull it through those tensions, around the bit at the bottom there, cut off the end of the thread to make it square. This needs to then go over to the left-hand side because I'm doing the left-hand looper. And tweezers, I think my tweezers are a bit bent. You go in there, and yes, first time. So again, I'm just going to pull that loose so that you can see it going through, and just keep that going until you see it coming out here. And again, we'll take that under the blade and round to the back of the machine. If you're losing the will at the moment, have a look on YouTube on the 19th of April. Did quite a long demo on it then. So with the needles, we're going to go the same way through the tensions, and then just like on a sewing machine, we're going to follow the guide. So I'm going around here, over there, over that one, down through, this is the right hand needle, so I'm going through the right hand hole here and take it around that hook there, and then we have a needle threader. I'm just going to move those tubes out of the way again so I can put the needles in the right position. It's a left and right needle threader, so push it over to the right hand side and it clips in place, which is great. So you don't have to hold it with one hand while you work out where you're going with the other. And just like with the needle threader on your sewing machine, come here, across the front, underneath the little hooks, and pull it through. And there's your loop. So that's left needle threaded. You can go in the same direction, and then the same with the right needle. So through the same channels, I've got a left hand loop underneath the little hook here. And then this time with the needle thread, pull it over to the left hand side, through the little hook, and thread it. Now you will, I caught half of that. You will notice that the needles are at different heights. That is how it should be, because that helps with the machine sewing at such a high speed for the needles to penetrate your fabric smoothly, so they're not both hitting the fabric at exactly the same moment. That goes around there. Now I'm just going to have a little play on a test piece of linen fabric. Always test on your fabric that you're using before you commit to sewing your seams, because it's not always the case that your tensions will be exactly the same. So I'll just take a small piece here. Under you go, and sew. And that looks pretty darn good to me. If anything, maybe the red could be a little bit tighter. And again, sew a chain off at the end. You always sew the chain off. If you wanted to take a hand needle and thread and sew that back into the seam to make it neat on your work, that would be the way to do it. But if I just zoom in and show you there. So I've got the blue and the red threads are the loopers. The red is a tiny bit loose on the top of there, so I'm going to tighten that slightly. And then the yellow and the white stitches are the straight stitches from the two needles. So that's the way that, I mean, I'd be happy with that, to be honest, but I'm just going to adjust the red very, very slightly. Only very slightly. Now that's all 4 threads. 4 threads I would use if I'm using a heavy fabric. 4 threads I would use with my linen. And 4 threads I would use if I've got a very loose weave fabric. If you, I was just reading your messages and I've switched myself off, because I had a message from Nigel saying, what's the best material for a man's t-shirt? Depends how heavy you want it. Go for a cotton jersey knit, I would do. For a lightweight t-shirt would be fabulous. Sandra's got her box bottom sorted. Dawn's upgraded from a 560 to a 680, bought lots of different feet. Can I use them on the 680 plus? Yes, you can. Val, I've answered. Sandra's got the tote bag book. Lovely. Yes, it is in there, your zip panel. Right. These linen, they are linen, 100% linen. But they have a texture, the way that they've been woven. When we were talking in the surgery area about the warp and the weft, these have got a bit of a diagonal going on as well, which creates a really lovely texture to it. And it's really soft. So you may look at that and think, oh, look at that. Got quilter's tape on my tummy. That it doesn't look like linen. It doesn't actually, and it doesn't crease like you would expect linen to, and it folds and drapes a lot nicer than you would expect linen to. That's because it's been stone washed, but you can really see the texture on that as well. So if you like the idea of linen being a natural fibre that you can, I mean, wash it and wash it and wash it and it just gets softer and softer, but linen is used in for summer wear, or if you live in a hot country, because it wicks away moisture and it's breathable and it's lightweight and it keeps you cool. So although it feels a little bit heavy and it does drape, you've still got all of those qualities of linen. But actually, without the kind of price you would expect to pay for linen, this is only £5.99. So that's the lavender. We've also got the blue, which is very much a denim kind of blue. That's really pretty. In fact, we're calling it denim. There you go. Again at £5.99. And then finally there, you've got the neutral. So this could be a pair of trousers or a lightweight jacket. It doesn't have to be for clothing. You could use it in homewares, making cushion covers and things like that. But it's a lovely, unusual, natural fibre, and it's really easy to sew with as well. We're up to date with those. Lovely. Really busy morning this morning. Let's have a go at something. Because your overlocker isn't going to replace your sewing machine, but there's an awful lot that you can do on your overlocker where you don't need a sewing machine. I'll show you how to make a top, but it's going to be small. It's better for cameras if it's smaller. That's what we're saying anyway. It's not just because I've only got half a metre of fabric and I haven't got enough to make a top. That wasn't the point at all. What I'm going to do, I'm going to come around here and show you. And this, how long have we got? Right, we'll be quick. You're going to measure from shoulder to shoulder, first of all. So from the bone at the top of your shoulder here to the bone at the top of your shoulder there, just measure straight across. And then add an inch to each side, so 2 inches bigger than that measurement there. And then from that measurement, you're going to measure how long you want your sleeves to be, and I would have thought 3/4 length sleeves would be quite nice, so measure that much. And then down this way, you're going to measure, say 10 inches that way. Double it, 20 inches. How big can we go with this? I'm going to do it. It may have different coloured sleeves. So that there. That looks about right to me. I'll have to chop the bottom off a little bit because I've already cut a piece out of that. Let's make sure it's straight across the top here. You'll measure this and make sure, can't see what I'm doing there, can you? It's all nice and square, so I've got 2 pieces. And this can be any length that you like. You could even make it long and into a dress, or it's going to look like a caftan. Right, I'm not going to make shoulders, but I am going to make a neckline. So I'm going to fold that in half, so I know where the centre is at the back. Well, the centre is at the front as well, and just show how uneven that is. Let me trim that down again. And cut a small circle, say about 1.5 inches from the corner, and make that about 5 inches across that way, and just cut a curve and make sure that that is a right angle. Otherwise, when you open it up, you're going to have a pointy neckline. And that's fine. But the front of it, I'm going to make a little bit lower so I can get it over my head. So now I'm just going to take one of the pieces and cut the same width, but lower at the front. Like that. Then I'm going to overlock around the edges. So I'm not actually going to hem I'm just going to overlock it. Which is quite nice if you've got the same colour thread, but it's also quite nice if you've got a completely contrasting thread. Ooh, I got carried away there. I've got an even lower neckline now. So that's how my front's going to look. And do the same on the back. I don't want that to be lower, so I'll be careful here. And I'm not pulling the fabric, so it's not going to stretch. So that's the back. And then I'm going to sew together on the shoulders. With no particular seam allowance. This is very loose fitting. And across this side. Like so. So I have that. And then we'll take the stone I'm going to make the sleeves out of. And I said 20 inches, didn't I, by 10? Measure it and make sure it's square when you get this home, because you'll have more than 20 minutes to make a top. So 20 inches, that looks about 20 inches. Yeah, I need to make myself some new clothes. And that'll be about there. Always better to make things bigger so that you can make them smaller if need be. I'm going to overlock the edges of these now. And particularly with something like this, you don't want something that's too tight. So it may involve wasting a little bit of fabric, but if you've got, if you do have enough fabric, then always go generously. So again, this is instead of hemming. It's nice fabric to work with, this one, actually. I know I've shown it to you before, but I've not actually used it before. Right, so we're going to fold the sleeve in half and mark the centre. Just put a pin in there. Of the opposite side to what we've just sewn. Got that the right way around. Yeah, we'll have a look in a minute. Then I'm going to open up my top. I mean, you could leave these kind of the seams on the outside if you wanted to, and have the whole lot sewn back to front. I'll do that in a minute. And then my sleeves are going to go. Just knock pins all over the place. Blue side up. So those are going to go right sides together with the seam here. Just make sure that's in the middle. And I start there. Okay. And then we'll go, so lift that up, because we're kind of sewing, that's it. Not right from the edge. So this is sewing the two pieces together. And again, I'm using 4 threads on this one because it's not a heavy fabric, but it's heavier than cotton, so I want a nice strong seam. So then I have this. So I need to put the other sleeve on the other side. This has got to be the quickest top ever. So just matching my centre point here. This wasn't planned, you know. I want to make something with an overlocker. I know. Not ambitious at all. That was me I was referring to. Hannah, producer, in my ear, so I don't talk like that. No, it's me saying, I need to make something. Okay. So I'm going to chain that off. You do get a little bin with it as well that catches all your threads. So then we have this. So right sides together, we're going to sew. Oh, I've done that the wrong way round. Never mind. We'll have a seam showing on one side. It's a quirky design feature. We're going to sew all the way around the sides, so I'm folding that over so you can actually see it looks like a top now. And we'll sew around the sides. I'm going to curve it a little bit around here as well, just under the arm. has got a bit missing from it because I was cutting out earlier on. Right. And then same on this side. And this is only using the 1/2 meters as well. If you were to buy this fabric by the meter, you could make something a lot longer. Or you could add different panels to it, which I shan't do at the moment, but if that's just not long enough and you've only got a small amount of fabric, there's no reason why you couldn't, oh, I've done that all over the place. You couldn't add an extra border around the bottom. Excuse my mic. I'm trying to be quiet. Is that very noisy? Yeah, so I've got a top. I'd maybe make the sleeves a little bit smaller, and I'd maybe make this a little bit wider. But that's where twirls come into account, doesn't it? So that's 2 1/2 meters of fabric with some left over. I think I would. So maybe the body a little bit wider and put a border around the bottom there as well. That would go, wouldn't it? Okay. So just have a look at that for a moment while I take my top off. Oh, if you've just joined us, that's not what it sounded like. Excuse my microphone again while I just do this. That's probably very noisy. There. Not done that before, have we? But all of your edges are finished off. I kind of like the look of having the overlocking on the outside. It's that kind of look, isn't it? And particularly when you're using different coloured threads like that, it can be a real feature. So yeah, so that was shoulder. I mean, get those measurements: shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to shoulder, and I would add 4 inches, not 2 inches, to make the body a little bit looser. Or you could just make it like that, or I could just lose a bit of weight. Oh, we've got some overlocker threads for you as well. You do need overlocker threads to go with an overlocker. They're strong threads because you've seen how quickly that can actually sew. So we want a nice strong thread. And these are they. And they're really useful colours as well. So although I've been sewing with 4 different colours, for the majority of the time you'll be using neutral colours. And we've got 4 of each of these. You can just use 3 if you wanted to. You can just use these in the lower loopers, in the coloured thread, in the stitches. You can mix and match them really easily. Only works out at £3.12 a spool, and you've got sets of different colours. So there's the cream and off-white and white and pale grey and dark grey, and you've got the black there as well. Each one of those has 1,200 metres on each one. So you've got 24 of those in total for £74.99. Oh, just to mention with needles as well for the Janome, or for the Elna, it does actually say on the machine that they would like you to use their needles, please. I know I had questions about needles last time, so I did look into it. With other overlockers, I don't know other manufacturers, but Elna would like you to use Elna needles with those, if that's all right with you. You do get spare ones with it anyway. Right, pins everywhere. There, the mess here. We're going to have a chat about pressing as well. And I've got 3 things for you that I think you're going to find really useful. Your pressing ham is going to be very well used because this will enable you to press into the crowns of shoulders and areas like this that you don't want to flatten. You imagine you've got your sleeve, your front and the back. It is 3-dimensional, and there's no way of pressing something 3-dimensional without getting a crease down the side of your sleeve. We don't always want that. So this is a pressing ham which is filled full of sawdust, so it's going to absorb the steam from your iron, so you don't burn your fingers on it either, and push this into the sleeve area. Or anywhere else that has a curve. It may be a princess seam, which is the seam that runs on a dress from your armhole down to the waist or down to the bottom. And that's where the bust shape is. Or even pressing out a dart. You're going to use something like this. I say something like this, that's £11.99 because we've got one of these as well, which you can use for the same end. But this is longer and slimmer, so it's meant more for sleeves. So you slip this inside your sleeve and you can press the seams open or flat without getting that crease that you don't want across the shoulders. But you can again use this in a princess seam, or if you're pressing out darts as well. And again, that's filled with sawdust. I have one of each of those and I use both of them. I'll use them on making bags, so I can really push this inside the bag if I don't want to flatten it again. Sometimes you want to flatten the side seams on a bag, but if you don't, push this inside and then you can just iron over the top of it. So that's really useful. And then if you're serious about your dressmaking, it's worth investing in a clapper. And there's a couple of reasons for this. This is made from beechwood, which again is absorbent. So when you're pressing, you'll press your seam normally open if you're dressmaking, and then while the fabric is still warm and on your ironing board, put this over the top of the seam and just hold it for a couple of seconds with slight pressure, and you'll have the seams really set. They'll be really neat, and your stitches within the fabric will be really flat as well. The pointy bit, oh, I've got a stock warning for you just coming in. The Aurifil. These are 100% cotton, 1,300 metres, 4 on each spool, that is. You've got 4 of those. We've only got 5 left, so we just wanted to warn you because these are always really popular. Not sure when we're going to get them back again, and been really busy as well. We haven't even seen them. So if you want to get hold of those, it's DJA 159. Just so that you know, just so if you've seen them before and you think, I'll order those later on, don't. Order them now, because you've only got 5. Right, so you go back in there, like that. So setting your seams, really important. When I first set a seam, if I'm dressmaking, I will use steam, but I go up and down with the iron, so that's pressing, not ironing, which is the gliding movement as you go across the fabric. I'll always press the seam to one side before I press it open, because you'll find that the thread from the stitches, they call it melding, it melts into the fabric more, so it kind of becomes one, it makes it flatter. So when you've pressed it to one side and you've melded the stitches, then you can open up the seam and then press it flat. But this helps to make the seam absolutely pristine. The reason it's got a pointy bit on the top, if you're pressing a seam on the edge of something like a collar, it's always beneficial to press the seam open before you press the collar flat. So turn your collar inside out, and this will enable you to slip the corner of the collar, or the point of the collar, over the edge, and then you can press it open, and then when you press it flat you get a much crisper crease. Pressing is really important. You know, it's a big part of whatever it is that you're making. If you're patchworking, you're going to be pressing your seams to one side, you'll be pressing them open. If you're dressmaking, you can actually alter the shape of a dress in a good way or a bad way by pressing and pushing and twisting and pulling and even easing when you're pressing. But if you've ever sewn anything, it looks nothing until you've actually ironed it, does it? It really makes a huge difference. So your iron is really important, and your pressing tools are really important as well. It's important as the machinery, I think. So scissors, pressing things, or cutting implements, pressing implements and sewing implements, they all kind of go together. You can't use one without the other. But for dressmaking particularly, you can use it for quilting, but particularly for dressmaking, that's a great one. Talking about turning things out as well, this is the iron finger, which is a lump of rubbery silicone. But it's really, really useful. You can touch the iron with it, so it's the same kind of things that baking trays are made out of, that kind of thing. But it's really solid, apart from the end, which is a little bit bendy in one direction and very solid in that direction. Reason being, you can use it to press seams open, but you can push things out as well. So if I've got a bag flap which is square, or I'm making a pocket which is square, I can push that end into the corner to push it out. But because it's silicone, it's not going to go straight through the corner. So it's strong enough to go into the corner, but not enough to break the seam. And this one's for round edges. So maybe it's a round pocket or a round collar or a round flap on a handbag. So you just put that inside and pull it around, and that pushes out round pieces. This end is really useful if you're ironing something that you want to hold down. So if I've got a very fine seam or a very fine hem, for instance, if I was doing this, and I want to iron that much, I'd be holding my iron here and my finger there. So don't use your finger, use your iron finger. And then if you touch that with the iron, it's not going to hurt it. That's what it's been designed for, and it's not going to melt. So particularly on very fine things like this, where you're getting very, very close to heat, use your iron finger. So that's £15.99. That's normally really busy as well. Oh, we haven't got many clappers left. We haven't even got an audience. Less than 10 of those are remaining now. Oh, I'm on the wrong page again. Just checking that you're there. Nah. Don't forget we've got an email now. We are here for the next 2 hours, but we're not live, so you're going to see a little bit more sewing over the next couple of hours. I'm going to be back again next Sunday and Monday when I've regained my senses. Anything that you want to order or you've seen in the shows, you can do that either on the website, which is sewingstreet.com, or on the phone lines, which is 0800 001 4433. You can order all the way through the rest of the day up until midnight tonight and not have any postage to pay if you've already placed an order. So if you ordered maybe the early bird, which is sold out, if you ordered that this morning at 8 o'clock and you want to come back later on and think, I want a clapper and ham, then we're not going to charge you £3.95 postage all over again. It'll be in effect free postage for the whole of the rest of the day. The overlocker that we featured in this hour, again, if you've ordered a packet of pins this morning, you get an overlocker with no P&P. It's fantastic. And do take a look on the website for the whole range of overlockers and of sewing machines that we have available for you there. Our website is building and building every single day, so I'm sure we're going to find something of interest for you, whether it's patterns or fabric or machinery or cutting tools or anything that you like. Let me give you details of the overlocker again. Remember, it's the air thread overlocker, which takes all of the hard work out of threading an overlocker. They're not hard, to be honest, I don't think, but can be a little bit daunting if you're a first-time overlocker. But by having an air thread overlocker, that takes all of the hard work and the figuring out of it. Makes it really simple and it's very quick. I have the Janome version of this overlocker, so it's exactly the same one, and I paid £850 for it. I know, and you know, it's worth every penny. I'm well pleased with it. But I use it a lot. At the moment, I'm working a lot with viscose fabrics because it's nice and fine and floaty, and I've been making tops and jackets and things like that. And you can do a really, really fine rolled hem with an overlocker, so you barely see the stitches, just gives a really pretty outline. And if you stretch the fabric, you have that fluted edge, which is really pretty. So I'm using my overlocker a lot at the moment. But have a go with it. Don't be put off by all of the threading. Once you've mastered that, which will take you minutes, then I think you're going to be really pleased with your investment. You're going to be using your overlocker a lot. Do you want to have a look what's coming up tomorrow? We've got fabrics and books at 8 o'clock in the morning. At 9 o'clock we have pot holders with a new guest. That's Catherine. She's coming up from Melton Mowbray. And then Melton Mowbray. Or was it? No, she's not. It's Leicestershire. And then early bird roundup is at 10 o'clock in the morning as well. So that's what's coming up tomorrow. Just want to mention, my quilting book. I've got signing to do. We launched my book last Monday, and thank you so much. We sold more books than I've ever sold in one show ever, and we sold out. Come in this morning and I'm wading through boxes and boxes and boxes of books to sign for you, and I don't mind at all. So at the moment this is exclusive to Sewing Street, so although you may have seen it on pre-order on some websites, they're not allowed to release any of their orders until next Monday. So you'll probably get this before then, so you're going to be one of the first people to get hold of it. And unlike with anywhere else that you're going to buy this from, these are signed. This is part of my Sewing Room Secrets range of books. This is the second in the range, just finished the third one. And they're beginners books, so they're techniques based. So although it says quilting, it's about quilting techniques, not necessarily patchwork and quilting projects. So the tools that you need, different kinds of techniques, using templates, marking tools, tying to quilt, or free motion, or stippling and big stitching and hand stitching, and then it moves on to 10 projects. So you'll be able to make, that's a quilt as you go. You'll be able to use the techniques that you've learned there to make one of 10 projects, and anything from wall hangers and mini quilts and table runners, not necessarily all involving patchwork, but 10 very different projects for you, including a bit of hand sewing and applique work as well. And that's £9.99, and that is signed. And I think the chunk that I'm about to sign outside is depleting already, so thank you so much for that. That's about it, isn't it? We covered everything. That's a box ticks, box tick, box. Okay then. I shall see you again next Sunday. Do stay with us for another couple of hours sewing, and meanwhile, take care, stay home, stay safe, and enjoy your sewing. I'll see you soon.